My cousin trusts Gouda Maps for everything. While waiting for a bus during a trip, the bus we needed to catch had already arrived at the station, but she grabbed my arm and said, "Sis, Gouda says this bus is still 10 minutes away. This definitely isn't the one we're waiting for." I watched helplessly as the bus drove away, ultimately missing our flight and having to buy tickets home at double the price. After work, while driving, she confidently pressed the accelerator, looking at the blinking green arrow on Gouda navigation. Gouda shows a green light, so it must be this traffic light's fault. I panicked, looking at the red light that was on, but before I could stop her, a car driving normally from the side crashed into us head-on. I ended up losing a limb and becoming disabled, while she only suffered a minor concussion and a broken bone. On a rainy day for a follow-up appointment, she took it upon herself to book a ride-hailing car, but set the pickup location to a flooded intersection 500 meters away. I wanted to change it to be picked up right at my doorstep, but she snatched my phone. "This is AMAP's recommended optimal pickup point for disabled people. You can't just change it." In the end, I ended up toppling over, wheelchair and all, into a puddle of water. Without so much as a glance, she turned and walked away, leaving me behind, soaked by the rain and with my wounds festering in filthy water. A severe infection set in, leading to multiple organ failure. In the end, the medical efforts failed, and I died. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself standing at a bus stop. My cousin lit up her phone screen and leaned in. "Look, sis," she said, "Gouda Maps says the bus really is still 10 minutes away." The bustling traffic stretched before me, and the cacophony of sounds around me reached my ears. For a moment, I was disoriented, then I pinched my thigh in disbelief. "Damn, that hurts. I actually did come back to life. In my past life, my cousin Song Ching Song was just like this, holding up her phone, confidently pointing at the Gouda map on the screen. She argued persuasively, "Sis, Gouda definitely won't be wrong. It must be that the bus driver forgot to change the route number." She then pointed to the few scattered passengers in the bus. "Moreover, the bus is so empty. It clearly isn't the airport shuttle we're supposed to take." Since she had volunteered to make the travel itinerary, I was afraid of dampening her enthusiasm and didn't want her to feel her efforts were going unappreciated, so I didn't argue. Naively, I thought her reliance on Gouda was just due to her being a novice planner, afraid of making mistakes, which is why she was so cautious. It wasn't until later that I realized she wasn't being careful at all. Song Ching Song was just an irredeemably stupid control freak. In my past life, on this day, I watched helplessly as the bus I was supposed to take drove away. The car that was supposed to arrive 10 minutes later on Gouda ended up being half an hour late. As we were approaching the airport, she insisted on choosing the drop-off point recommended by Gouda, which was the farthest from the terminal entrance. She proudly said, "Best stopping point, fewer people, wider road, no traffic jams." As a result, we missed our flight. Since it's a holiday, airfare has skyrocketed, and we had to pay double to get home, but she completely blamed me for it. "Sis, if you had just insisted a bit more, maybe I would have listened and taken the earlier bus. So it's your fault, and you should pay for this ticket. Otherwise, I don't mind waiting until the fare drops in 2 days." With a crucial meeting the next day, I had no choice but to swallow my pride and pay up, writing it off as bad luck. After that, she only got worse. After a business dinner where I'd had too much to drink, she volunteered to pick me up as we approached an intersection. The light was clearly red, yet, her eyes fixed on the blinking green arrow on her phone's navigation, she confidently hit the gas. Gouda showed a green light. It must be an issue with this traffic light. Only a fool wouldn't go. I was already drunk, feeling dizzy, and her words instantly woke me up. I screamed in terror, but before I could even try to stop it, a truck driving normally from the side crashed straight into us. After the violent collision, I completely lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I had lost my legs forever, amputated and disabled, while she only suffered a minor concussion and a fracture. When the traffic police came to investigate, she was still in bed, justifying her lies with righteous indignation. "It's the traffic light system's delay. My Gouda clearly showed a green light. I'm not at fault." After being discharged, she hypocritically offered to take care of me, turning my life into chaos. On a rainy day for a follow-up appointment, she booked a ride-hailing car but set the pickup location at a waterlogged intersection 500 meters away. I wanted the driver to come right to our door, but she snatched my phone away as if defending some sacred, inviolable truth. This is the optimal pickup spot recommended by AMAP. You can't just change it, the system has it all calculated. Then, just as we were about to leave, her stomach suddenly acted up. She shoved the phone into my hands, telling me to go ahead first and that she'd catch up. I didn't want to miss my appointment, so I had to go out alone. Pushing my wheelchair, the rainwater outside had already risen past my ankles, making the path impossible to see. I ended up toppling, wheelchair and all, straight into a puddle. My cousin arrived late, took one look at me lying in the filthy water, and wrinkled her nose in disgust. Seriously, sis, you're a grown woman playing in dirty water. How gross is that? My boyfriend asked me out, so you're on your own. I'm heading off. With that, she walked away without so much as a glance in my direction. However, the combination of getting drenched in the rain and my amputation wound being soaked in filthy water for so long led to a severe infection, which ultimately resulted in multiple organ failure. In my final moments in the ICU, all I wanted was to see my parents one last time. As a result, she hailed a taxi for my parents who had rushed over from our hometown, and set the drop-off point at the best drop-off spot, which was the farthest from the hospital's inpatient department. Until my death, I never got to see my parents again. Endless hatred surged like a tide, and I trembled uncontrollably. Since she trusts it so much, this time, Song Chingsong can just hold on to that Gouda map and find his way there himself. Sis, what are you spacing out for? Song Chingsong gave me a push out of impatience when I didn't respond. I pulled my gaze back, too lazy to waste words with her, and directly showed the bus code on my phone, swiping it on the bus just as the door was about to close. With the door closed, I turned back and smiled at her. Song Chingsong stared in stunned disbelief as the car drove away. Through the car window, he looked down and sent her a message. Since Gouda Maps says the next bus is in 10 minutes, you can just wait for that one yourself, too. After finishing all that, I found a seat on the bus and set her messages to Do Not Disturb. While I was at it, anticipating she'd be late just like in my previous life, I went ahead and canceled her flight ticket. As much as I'd love to see the look on her face in person, keeping my own skin safe is the higher priority right now. With her out of the way, I arrived at the airport a full 3 hours early. After clearing security, I settled into a seat by the gate, savoring the hard-won sense of calm. The airport terminal's PA system crackled to life. Attention, passenger Su Xia, your family is waiting for you at the service desk in Zone A. Please proceed there immediately. Upon hearing this announcement, the announcement played on a loop, but I remained unmoved. In a strange city, who else could be looking for me but Song Chingsong, who came here on vacation with me? Only a fool would go looking for her. Before I could even board the plane, 2 airport police officers were already striding toward me with Song Chingsong in tow. Song Chingsong's eyes were red-rimmed, her hair was disheveled. She looked utterly frantic. She rushed over, hugged my arm, and cried against my shoulder. Sis, I finally found you. I thought you were kidnapped by bad people. It's all your fault for not believing me and insisting on taking that strange bus. This scene immediately caught the attention of all the waiting passengers around. I even heard some people whispering, the older sister is still running around, making her younger sister worry like this. Yeah, she looks so quiet. How can she be so thoughtless? These idle comments reached my ears, and the feeling of helplessness from my previous life swept over me again. 'Cause Song Ching is still acting. I sent you messages and you didn't reply, and I couldn't reach you on your phone, so I had to bother the police uncle. Sister, how can you be so willful? It's all my fault, inside and out. It's my fault for not trusting Gouda, for boarding that strange bus, for making her worry, and for causing her trouble. The police beside her were clearly taken in by her sincere appearance. He frowned and earnestly said to me, Little girl, when 2 sisters are out, is there anything that can't be discussed properly? Even if you're upset, you shouldn't run off alone. Look how worried your sister is. It's very dangerous. I coldly looked at Song Chingsong and pulled my arm back. Officer, we're not biological sisters. The officer paused for a moment, then waved his hand dismissively. Hey, your sister already told us, cousins are still sisters. After all, we're all family here. Let's talk this out calmly. After saying that, seeing that we had reunited and his job was done, he turned around to leave. Seeing the officer about to leave, Song Ching Song immediately put on a smug expression and leaned in to whisper to me, "Sis, is this our boarding gate? When do we board?" I looked at her and spoke calmly, "I've already refunded your ticket." Song Ching's smile froze on his face, and his mouth twitched. "What did you say?" I added casually, "What I'm curious about is how you got past security without a boarding pass. Did the police bring you in?" But now, it looks like the police are walking away. I gestured with my chin towards the officers' retreating backs. "If you don't follow them out now to buy a new ticket and go through security again, you probably won't make it home today." Song Chingsong shed his previous expression and instantly turned as red as Guangdong. "Su Xia, how dare you treat me like this?" I couldn't be bothered with her and just casually reminded, "If you don't go now, the police will really be gone." She looked at me, then at the police officer's retreating figure about to disappear around the corner, and finally panicked, frustrated. She stomped her foot, turned, and ran after the police, shouting, "Wait for me." Watching her disheveled back, the pent-up anger that had accumulated over 2 lifetimes finally eased a bit in my chest. As the boarding announcement came, I picked up my bag and walked toward the gate without looking back. 3. I felt so much better after getting rid of Song Chingsong. Although we don't live together, in theory, I should be able to avoid her as much as possible. The problem is, we work at the same company. Looking back, it's all because of the stupid mistakes I made in my past life. Due to some personal reasons, I didn't start looking for a job immediately after graduation. Instead, I took a year off. By the time I had been working steadily at this company for 2 years, Song Chingsong had just graduated from university. Back then, our relationship was still quite good. After all, she was the only girl of our generation in the family. During holidays and festivals, both families would always get together, full of joy and laughter. As soon as she heard the name of my company and asked what positions we were hiring for, she immediately submitted her resume without a second thought. Now, no amount of regret or self-recrimination can change what's done. The day after I got home, Song Ching Song, true to form, didn't send me any messages as she usually would. I was glad for the peace and quiet, and honestly wished she would just forget I existed. On the first day back at work after the break, the supervisor called our entire project team into the conference room. The project for the amusement park in the south of the city, the cooperation partner's interest is not very high. The supervisor looked grave. I found out that the other party's CEO is a passionate mountaineer, so I've already arranged it with him. This weekend, our team will accompany him on a hike up Mount Suiyun. He scanned the room, his tone growing more emphatic. This event must be meticulously prepared. Failure is not an option. No sooner had the words been spoken than Song Chingsong sprang up from his seat, like an eager schoolboy desperate to impress. "Leave the preparations to me, supervisor. I guarantee nothing will go wrong." She stood tall, her voice booming, capturing everyone's attention. My colleague Xiaoli, sitting next to me, nudged my arm and whispered, "Sister Xia, I remember you posted photos on WeChat last year. Didn't you climb Suiyun Mountain?" After saying that, she directly raised her voice to the supervisor and said, "Supervisor, I think it would be more reliable to assign this task to Sister Su Xia. She's more familiar with that mountain." My heart skipped a beat, and I thought, this is bad. Sure enough, Song Chingsong's face instantly fell, and the look she gave me was full of resentment. Right in front of the whole team, she started accusing me. "Put her in charge, manager. Don't let her fool you." Just the other day when we went on a trip together, she didn't even do the most basic planning. We only avoided getting lost thanks to my Gouda maps. In the end, she got annoyed with me, just left me alone at the station, bought a ticket, and came back first. How can someone so irresponsible be in charge of such an important project? What if they lose a client on the mountain? She turned black into white, and all my actions became irresponsible and reckless in her words. The glances of my colleagues around me instantly turned strange. The supervisor's brows furrowed together. Trying to explain myself in front of colleagues and superiors who are in the dark would only make me sound more ridiculous. Seeing my silence, the manager clearly bought Song Chingsong's story. He waved his hand, putting an end to the matter. "All right then, Xiao Song will be in charge of this hiking trip. Su Xia, you should take a page from Song Qing's book. You need to be more responsible." Song Qing immediately shot me a smug look, the corners of her mouth Curling into a triumphant smirk, I didn't need to think twice to know that her idea of preparation was just studying that map app for the most treacherous route possible, but things had already come to this point. Making a scene now would be pointless and only make me look petty. What I'm waiting for is the moment when everyone can see her for who she truly is. For the weekend arrived quickly. The rest of our project team was already waiting at the foot of the mountain. We waited and waited, but there was still no sign of General Manager Lee and Song Ching Song. The supervisor's expression grew increasingly grim as he kept checking his phone. What's wrong with this Song guy? Can't even handle a simple pickup properly. Another 20 minutes passed before a ride-hailing car finally arrived, pulling to a stop at a fork in the road a good 200 meters away from us. The car door swung open, and a middle-aged man in a windbreaker was the first to step out, his face dark as thunder. Song Ching Song, completely oblivious, was pointing at his phone's navigation app and chattering excitedly to Mr. Lee as they approached. The supervisor hurried forward. Mr. Lee, my apologies for keeping you waiting. Mr. Lee waved a dismissive hand, his anger barely contained. Supervisor Wang, this young Song of yours from your company, he's quite a piece of work. The entrance clearly says, Suiyin Mountain Scenic Area. But she insisted the driver not stop. Holding her phone, she insisted that Gouda recommended the best starting point for hiking at the next intersection, and we ended up circling the road 3 times. All eyes turned to Song Ching Song. She looked, I was only trying to ensure Mr. Lee had the best hiking experience. Gouda can't be wrong. I almost laughed out of anger at her. Mr. Lee clearly didn't want to get entangled with her any further, took a deep breath, and said to the supervisor, forget it. Let's just get started early. Song Ching Song immediately perked up. Again, pulled out a printed route map from her backpack, and spread it out in front of everyone. Everyone, I've already planned today's route. She pointed at an exceptionally steep trail. We're going to challenge the most difficult path of the brave. It leads straight to the summit, offering the best views. I frowned and immediately voiced my objection. No, we can't take this path. It rained a few days ago, and that road is full of gravel and wild trails, slippery and muddy, very dangerous. Song Ching's face instantly fell. Sister, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. She pulled out a small red booklet from her pocket and waved it in front of us. See that? Tour guide license. I'm the real deal. Gouda marked it. This trail is tough, but the scenery is unparalleled, perfect for experienced hikers, she said, and glanced at Mr. Lee. Song Ching Song was using reverse psychology to get Mr. Lee to agree to this route. Xiao Lu from the same group immediately agreed. Ching Song is right, we've come all this way, so we might as well go for something exciting. Walking those boring, elderly-friendly steps is no fun at all. The supervisor hesitated and looked toward General Manager Lee. Sure enough, General Manager Lee was intrigued by the terms, experienced mountaineer, and excitement. Let's take this route. I enjoy a challenge. Song Kingso casually raised his chin at me with a smug look. When I wanted to observe that route again, I immediately closed Gouda. Like a primary school student afraid of someone stealing their snacks, only Xiao Li came up to me and whispered, just loud enough for the 2 of us to hear, Sister Xia, I think you're right, we should be careful. I nodded at her, but the tension in my heart never eased. 5. The weather was surprisingly perfect as we made our way up the mountain, with brilliant sunshine all around. Song Ching Song's silver tongue was truly impressive. With just a few well-chosen words, she had Mr. Lee beaming from ear to ear, showering her with praise. By the time we huffed and puffed our way to the summit, she was even more eager to please, pulling out her phone and directing everyone into position for a photo. Come on, Mr. Lee, take the center spot, let's get a summit group photo. In the photo, our manager was also wearing a satisfied smile, but right after our short break, as we were preparing to descend, a colleague started sneezing repeatedly. A thin mist had settled over the mountaintop without us noticing, and the wind had turned chilly. I stood up, pointing to another stone-stepped path to the west, my tone unusually firm. Let's take this path down the mountain. The stepped path may not have the best scenery, but we'll definitely get down safely before dark. Song Kingso immediately exploded. Why should we listen to you? Gouda says returning the same way is the fastest and safest. Are you going to be irresponsible again? What if something happens to the client she's trying to pin the blame on me again? I coldly stared at her. Take a look at the weather right now first. in the few minutes of our argument, the fog has grown thicker, and visibility has rapidly decreased. The temperature had also plummeted several degrees. Xiao Lu, who had been clamoring for some excitement, was now shivering all over in her thin, quick-dry shirt, her lips turning purple from the cold. So cold. No sooner had she spoken than her eyes rolled back and she fell straight backward. Xiao Lu. What's wrong with you? I dashed over in a flash and caught her just before she fell. Her forehead and arms were ice cold to the touch. Oh no, she's suffering from hypothermia. Quick, lay her down in a sheltered spot, take out all the dry clothes from your bags and cover her with them, and hurry up with the hot water if you have any, I shouted while quickly unzipping my and wrapping it around Xiao Lu. Everyone was stunned by the sudden situation and could only scramble to do as I said, but Song Ching Song grabbed my arm and screamed, "Are you crazy? Su Xia, we can't stop here." She shoved her phone screen in my face, with the red dot indicating our destination blinking on it. Gouda shows there's a pavilion 300 meters ahead, and that's the best place to call for help. We have to take her there to call 120. All the anger I had been holding back suddenly flared up. Are you out of your mind? Moving someone with hypothermia is the worst thing you can do. You'll kill her. I'm the professional here. I have a tour guide license. Song Ching Song shrieked hysterically as she spoke. She lunged forward to grab Xiao Lu's clothes. I couldn't take it anymore. I forcefully slapped her hand away and pulled a credential from the deepest part of my backpack. With a loud slap, he slammed the ID card onto the big rock in front of her. So, what do you think this is? 6. It was a deep blue work badge with the bold words, Blue Sky Rescue Team. Even though it was left over from my volunteer work 2 years ago, the embossed seal and the photograph on it are still perfectly clear. In that moment, everyone froze, staring at me with looks of utter disbelief. That's right. For the entire year I took off after graduating university, I constantly felt life had no meaning and had absolutely no motivation to work. I happened to see an advertisement recruiting volunteers for the Blue Sky Rescue Team. Without thinking, I immediately signed up for it. That entire year, I went on public welfare rescue missions with the team, gradually learning professional knowledge, witnessing too many accidents and deaths, and feeling how fragile life is. However, I suddenly regained my confidence in life. So even in my previous life, despite being amputated after a car accident, I still held hope for life. But Song Ching was like an executioner, slowly crushing any hope of survival. I took out my phone, facing all the gazes, and showed them the call records. This certificate may be a bit old, but first aid knowledge and professional judgment never expire. While you were verifying the authenticity of my credentials, I already contacted the rescue team at the foot of the mountain. Their orders were for us to stay put, keep warm, and under no circumstances move the injured. Song Ching Song's face instantly drained of color. The supervisor and manager Lee exchanged a look, clearly taken aback that I had this other layer to my identity. Before long, a professional rescue team arrived, carrying stretchers. After examining Xiao Lu's condition, the lead doctor said to me, "The response was very timely and professional. It's a good thing you didn't move her carelessly, or the consequences could have been dire." After descending the mountain, Xiao Lu was taken to the hospital and confirmed to have only mild hypothermia, with no serious issues. Furthermore, the cooperation contract with Mr. Lee was successfully signed the very next day. At the signing ceremony, General Manager Lee shook the director's hand, but his gaze passed over him and landed on me. "Manager Wang, your company's Su Xia is quite impressive. With her around, one really feels at ease." Regarding Song Ching Song, who had provided him with countless emotional support along the way, General Manager Lee remained silent. The director immediately broke into a smile and chimed in, "Exactly, little Su has always been outstanding. This project was successfully completed, and she played a crucial role. I've decided to promote her and give her a raise this month." Song Ching Song, standing in the corner, looked even more disgusted than if he had eaten shit upon hearing those words, but since she had almost caused a major mistake, she could only shut her mouth and force a smile. Considering her crazy actions in her previous life, I didn't dare show too much joy, fearing she was holding back some big move. 7. As soon as the contract was signed, the supervisor walked with a spring in his step. With a wave of his hand, he announced that the entire project team would be treated to afternoon tea. Company-sponsored, cheers erupted in the office. Song Ching Song swept away the previous gloom and said, I'll do it, I'll help everyone order. I just happen to have a coupon on my phone. It'll save us all a good bit of money. After saying that, she let out a sigh and shot me a fleeting, almost imperceptible glance. I know I didn't handle the hiking situation well, and I'm not exactly a great guide. But for something small like ordering takeout, please, feel free to ask me. The way she said it was so manipulative and full of self-pity. It was a blatant insinuation that I was the villain, the one who wouldn't let go of her mistakes. My mind flashed back to the despair of my past life, struggling in a cesspool. I wouldn't dare drink this milk tea, I said calmly. No, thank you, I'll pass. Song's easy smile froze on her face, and her eyes reddened at a visible rate. Sis, are you still mad at me? I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me this once and give me a chance to make it up to you. Okay. Her pitiful look instantly stirred up sympathy among her colleagues. Exactly, Su Xia. Ching Song was just trying to be nice. Don't be so ungracious, right? The hiking incident is over, and Xiao Lu is fine, isn't he? Everyone makes mistakes, and making plans is already tough enough, isn't it? They all chimed in, completely forgetting who was stubborn on the mountain yesterday, almost costing a life. These people's memories are sometimes hilariously short. I didn't say anything more, just silently put on my headphones and continued working on the plan. Seeing that I was unmoved, my colleagues also found it boring and turned to comfort Song Ching. Ching, don't be sad, let's drink. Yes, whatever you want to order, we've got your back. With everyone fawning over her, Song Ching's slight grievance instantly vanished. She held her phone, still not having placed an order, and started studying Gouda map. She muttered to herself, the main entrance of the company is crowded with people and cars. It's inconvenient for delivery drivers to park. I need to find a good spot to pick up the food. I watched her in that trance-like state and was glad I hadn't placed an order. 8. Sure enough, the delivery guy called after about 10 minutes. Song Ching Song, like a little traffic cop, directed over the phone. Hello, sir, don't wait at the main entrance. Drive forward. Can you see that intersection? Yes, then turn left, about 100 meters. There's a public restroom on the side of the road. Wait for us at the corner across from the restroom. The delivery guy on the other end was clearly confused. I'm right downstairs at your company. Can't I just come up or wait here? Song's tone was firm. No, this is the best temporary pickup spot I found on the map. Trust me, you won't get a ticket there. After saying that, she hung up and told the two colleagues going to pick up the order. Done. Go now. The timing is perfect. A few minutes later, her phone rang. Song Ching Song turned on the speaker. It was the delivery guy, and from a distance, I could feel his anger. Hey, where exactly are you? There are 2 street corners across from the public restroom. I've been waiting here for ages, and not a single soul in sight. Song Ching Song shot back with righteous indignation. What's your problem? It's clearly marked on the map, the designated pickup spot. Take another look. The conversation went nowhere, and the frustrated delivery driver hung up the phone. The two colleagues tasked with picking up the order trudged back and forth under the blazing sun, searching around the building. By the time they brought the afternoon tea back, they were all drenched in sweat and full of complaints. Good grief, that place was miles away. We had to go all the way around to find it. My coffee frappe has completely melted into a puddle. There's not a hint of chill left. It's no different from a room temperature drink. Faced with everyone's grievances, Song Ching Song showed not a shred of remorse. She held her phone's map up to the group, pointing at the red dot on it. Look, the map shows this is the most convenient handover spot. What's the big deal about walking a few extra steps? She argued with conviction. Delivery people have it tough too. We can't let them risk parking illegally just to bring us stuff. Song Ching stood on his moral high ground, completely disregarding the wasted lunch break and the now soggy, tasteless drinks. Meanwhile, I had long since finished my own lunch at a leisurely pace. It only confirmed my belief that Song Ching's thought process was utterly beyond rational comprehension. Shaoli didn't join them in ordering milk tea either. Instead, he made himself a cup of coffee and quietly slipped over to my workstation. Lowering her voice, she pointed to her own temple and mouthed the words to me. Sister Su, is she a bit off in the head? I looked at Song Ching Song, who was still arguing not far away, and shook my head helplessly. 9. After landing a Big deal. The supervisor, feeling bold, booked the largest KTV room just before leaving work, saying they wanted to celebrate. That little incident at noon was nothing compared to the victory feast, but Song Ching-song, contrary to his usual behavior, didn't touch a drop of alcohol. He eagerly poured drinks for one and selected songs for another, wearing a flattering smile halfway through the celebration. She came over with a glass of juice, her eyes sparkling as she stared at the car keys on the table. Sis, your new car is so beautiful, can I take it for a spin? She shook the juice in her hand, pouting playfully. I didn't drink anything, and I'm really good at driving. I promise to get you home safely. It felt like a sledgehammer had hit my brain. The blaring music and raucous chatter of the KTV instantly faded into the distance. The scene from my last life, right after the car crash, flashed before my eyes. The excruciating pain of my leg being crushed into numbness was still so vivid. I slammed my glass down, stuffed the keys back into my pocket, bit back the curse on my tongue, and said, "No need, I've already called a designated driver." After the refusal, I got up and headed to the restroom. I wanted to splash some water on my face, to wash away those terrifying memories, but when I returned, I saw Song Ching-song stealthily putting my phone back into the bag I had left on the sofa. She saw me and instead of feeling the least bit guilty, she proudly raised her face. "Sister, after all these years, your phone password is still the same, huh? I just canceled your ride-hailing order for you," she said boastfully. "It's so late now, and everyone's had a drink except me, so it's perfect that I can take you home. Don't be shy about it." Rage surged from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. I snatched my bag back, making sure nothing was missing. "Who gave you the right to touch my phone and cancel my order?" Wang Jia, who always loves to mediate, stepped forward, frowning and tugging at my arm. "Oh, Su Xia, let it go." Ching Song meant well. She urged me in a parental tone. She just wanted to help. Why be so harsh? Besides, your cousins, don't be so petty. I was too tired to argue with them anymore and grabbed my car keys to leave. After settling the bill, others also came out in twos and threes. As soon as we arrived at the KTV entrance, a driver wearing a rideshare vest rode up on a small electric scooter. "Miss, do you need a rideshare service?" Just as I was about to nod, Song Ching-song suddenly darted in front of me like a madman and started yelling at the rideshare driver, "Get lost, we don't need you, get out of here." The designated driver was startled by her outburst. He gave us a bewildered look, muttered some curses under his breath, and rode off on his scooter. Song Ching-song was still fuming. She planted her hands on her hips, whirled around, and fixed me with a death glare, her face alight with vindictive satisfaction. "I'm putting my foot down right here, right now. For every designated driver that shows up, I'll turn one away. Let's see how you're getting home tonight." After threatening, he couldn't resist adding one more line. "Think you're so great just because you bought a new car, don't know how to appreciate kindness." 10. Seeing that I wasn't reacting and had no intention of acknowledging her, Song turned to Sister Wang and started to sob. "Sister Wang, what could I, a young woman, possibly do to her? I just wanted to do something for our team, to make up for my past mistakes. Why won't she give me even a single chance?" Sobbing, she pointed at me and accused, "She insists on letting some strange man she doesn't even know drive her car. What on earth is she so afraid I'll do?" I watched her performance with a cold eye, my stance resolute and unyielding. "This isn't about being stingy. There's no way I'm letting you drive my car. After all, making a mistake that foolish once in a lifetime is more than enough." The situation reached a tense stalemate. Song Ching-song was utterly embarrassed and couldn't find a way out. Seeing no hope on my side, she began to shake Sister Wang's arm. In a sugary, overly sweet voice, she said, "Sister Wang, if she doesn't appreciate it, forget it. I'll drive you home in your car. I promise to drive you safely." Sister Wang was already tipsy, and being flattered by Song Ching-song, she felt on top of the world. Without a second thought, she pulled her car keys out of her bag and waved them around. "Great, we're still the easygoing and sensible ones. Sister trusts you." Sister Wang had just returned from her maternity leave and had a baby at home who was still nursing. Thinking about what Song Ching-song might do, I couldn't help but, out of my last shred of conscience, stop Sister Wang. "Sister Wang, you should really call a designated driver or have your husband come pick you up." Instead of appreciating my concern, Sister Wang was deeply offended by my words, reeking of alcohol. She gave me a look of utter contempt from head to toe. Su Xia, what is your problem tonight? Are you quite finished? The tone was sharp and sarcastic. She slapped the car keys into Song Qingsong's hand, her action tinged with a hint of pique. Her voice suddenly rose, deliberately loud enough for all the colleagues still around to hear clearly. What? Are you the only one who's careful? Let me tell you, I, Wang Lijuan, am not that delicate. She got more and more agitated. Can't you stand to see us getting along? I'm determined to have Song Qingsong take me home today. Her skills are 100 times better than those of people who are always suspicious and paranoid. Song Qingsong immediately held onto Sister Wang's arm tightly. Sister Wang, please don't be upset. It's not worth getting angry over such a person. Sister Su Xia is also, maybe she's just naturally more cautious. Her words only served to further cement my image as a petty and malicious person. Seeing this, no one else among the colleagues dared to speak up. I looked at Sister Wang's face, flushed from alcohol and anger, and then at Song Qingsong's smug expression behind her. Suddenly, I just felt utterly drained. Good intentions are wasted on the doomed. I tried to warn them, but instead, I was seen as a scheming villain. I said no more, just stood there expressionlessly with my arms crossed, watching Song Qingsong smugly take the driver's seat with the keys in hand. The taillights disappeared from sight. The countdown has already begun. 11. My colleagues have all left in pairs, leaving me alone at the door. My phone is out of battery. I simply walked into the hotel next door, borrowed a charger from the front desk, and booked a room. Since I didn't have to work the next day and wasn't in a hurry to go home, as long as I could get through tonight safely, spending a little extra money wasn't a big deal. Just as I finished showering and was about to find a movie to watch, my phone suddenly started buzzing with notifications. In the company's large group chat, several all messages started popping up in rapid succession. The message came from a colleague who had just taken a taxi home right after Song Qingsong. Holy shit, something terrible has happened. Right below it was a photo, incredibly blurry, showing only the hazy outlines of flashing red and blue police lights and an ambulance. Sister Wang and Song Qingsong's car got T-boned by a semi-truck at the Nanshan intersection. The front end is completely smashed. The very next second, someone tagged me in the group chat, at Su Xia. Did you try to stop them back then? My God, you're practically a prophet. I stared at the message, never expecting karma to come knocking so quickly, but I felt completely unmoved inside. I turned off all notifications, tossed my phone onto the nightstand, and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up the next day to find it was already 10 a.m. I picked up my phone and opened that WeChat group with its 999 plus unread messages. It took me ages of scrolling to finally piece together the whole story. Another colleague in the group chat mentioned that her close friend happened to be on duty at the city emergency center last night. I heard 2 people were brought in from a car accident. Sister Wang was also injured, but since she was in the back seat, she wasn't in life-threatening danger. But they say the female driver had her legs trapped in the driver's compartment, and all the bones were shattered. To save her life, an amputation had to be performed right then and there. I never expected this, in this life. It turned out to be Song Qingsong who had to have an amputation. After all, in her previous life, she only had a mild concussion and a few fractures. It seems the butterfly effect of my rebirth is far more intense than I imagined. On Monday, the company's HR department organized a visit to the hospital. I held a bouquet of flowers and followed my colleagues to the door of Song Qingsong's ward. I hesitated, unsure whether to go in, before I could make up my mind. A loud crash of broken objects came from inside the ward, then came Song Qingsong's furious roar. What gives you the right to cut off my leg? Who authorized you? I'll sue you, the doctor explained patiently. Song, please calm down. The situation was extremely critical. Both your legs were completely crushed. If we hadn't performed the amputation immediately, you wouldn't have survived. How could someone as stupid as Song Qingsong possibly listen to reason? She would only blame everyone else for all her mistakes. I don't care. My legs were gone when I woke up. You're all quacks, murderers. Get out, all of you, get out. I need to transfer hospitals. I'm going to the best one to get my leg fixed. Listening to her hysterical crying and cursing inside, the smirk on my face could no longer be suppressed. I handed the flowers in my hand directly to my colleague who had witnessed the whole scene and looked equally awkward. Sorry, I suddenly have a stomachache, I need to go to the restroom, go on in without me. With that, I turned and walked away before they could react. Once outside the hospital, I immediately hailed a taxi from the curb. Driver, to the nearest mall, please. After all, the weather is so nice today, I need to celebrate myself properly. 12. The next day at work during lunch, my colleague said there was quite a show after I left. Sister Wang's family stormed into Song Chingsong's hospital room, demanding an explanation from her. They pinned all the blame on Song Chingsong, insisting she pay for the car damage and all of Sister Wang's medical expenses. Already drowning in the agony of her recent amputation, this confrontation pushed Song Chingsong over the edge. She broke down in tears, threatening suicide and saying she couldn't go on living. But with her mobility gone, her threats were just empty words. She was incapable of taking any real action. The police determined that Song Chingsong was fully at fault. Naturally, she refused to accept the blame. She hired a lawyer, claiming she needed to get to school, and insisted it was the traffic light's fault. Her Gouda map clearly showed she had the right of way. In the end, she not only had to compensate the other driver involved in the accident but also got herself into a legal battle with Gouda Software. But they're a major corporation with a robust legal system. There was no way they were going to let Song Chingsong win the case. Even the lawyer was at a loss and simply skipped town before the second hearing. Song Chingsong was left to face everything alone. She was on the verge of a mental breakdown and was also ordered to pay a hefty sum in compensation. Song Chingsong fled back to her hometown, hoping her family would help shoulder some of the burden, but I had already tipped off her parents. Not only did he completely wash his hands of the whole mess, but he also disclosed the exact amount Song Chingsong was required to pay in compensation and apology. Song Chingsong was never the favorite at home to begin with. With two older sisters married off far away and a younger brother who had just started kindergarten, upon hearing about this, his uncle seized the opportunity of a job transfer and moved his entire family away without even telling Song Chingsong. For the rest of his life, Song Chingsong would not only have to spend a fortune on his own medical treatment but also pay an enormous sum in damages. This time, she has to swallow the bitter fruit of her own making. As for me, I will cast off my chains and embrace a bright new future. The end. Story 2. At the courtship banquet, all the most eligible young mermen of our clan gathered for my sister and me to choose from. I accepted the advances of an obsidian-tailed merman and bore a remarkably strong offspring within just 1 year. Our child was groomed as the future ruler from birth, elevating the status of the obsidian-tailed lineage. Meanwhile, my sister chose a silver-tailed merman for his beauty, yet failed to conceive for years. Consumed by jealousy, my sister stole and murdered my child, then flayed me alive, tore out my tendons, and carved out my core, leaving me to die in agony. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the betrothal banquet, just in time to see my sister claim the obsidian-tailed mermaid before I could. I knew she'd been reborn too, but what she didn't realize was this: fate would deny her victory yet again. I choose the obsidian-tailed merman. Thorn, who hadn't moved until now, lifted his gaze toward his sister Dahlia. As astonished looks swept through the crowd, only I could decipher the predatory gleam in my sister's eyes, that smug look of someone holding a winning hand. I knew she'd been reborn too. Merfolk reproduction has always been challenging, and our population continues to dwindle. The king personally selects mates from our entire race, hoping to produce powerful offspring to strengthen our merfolk lineage. He even decreed that any exceptionally strong offspring would be groomed as the next ruler. In my past life, Thorn was the one who pursued me, and I chose him. Within just a year, we welcomed our child Dante, who displayed remarkable bloodline talents even while still in his egg. The king himself nurtured Dante after hatching, proclaiming him the next ruler of the merfolk. Thorn's status rose accordingly, and even the previously shunned obsidian-tailed merfolk, once deemed inferior for their dull scales, gained admiration. Yet my sister, who chose the silver-scaled mare Emery for his dazzling fins, never succeeded in conceiving a mare egg. As his true nature gradually surfaced and drew public criticism, he took out his frustrations on Emery. Whenever I saw him, Emery's body bore fresh wounds. I shuddered to imagine what horrors lay hidden beneath those sleeves. Watching my rising status while enduring whispers about her childlessness, my sister stole and murdered my young son in a fit of jealous rage. Arriving too late, I found only Dante's lifeless body, heartbroken and distracted during the fight. I was overpowered by my sister. My sister flayed my skin, ripped out my tendons, and tore open my core, cursing me to die in agony. The pain still throbbed faintly throughout my body as visions of my sister's frenzied eyes and Dante's tiny form flashed through my mind. Regret and fury burned hotter within me, my palms marked with crimson crescents from my nails. I yearned to end her life that very instant. My father's puzzled voice snapped me back to reality. Dahlia, didn't you insist on choosing the mermaid with the most beautiful scales? Why the sudden change? Father, you misremember. That was my choice for elder sister. As for me, I've always adored the obsidian scales of the mermaids. My younger sister flashed a coquettish smile before turning to me. Sister, surely you won't object if I claim thorn. Silver-tailed merfolk are exquisite. They'd complement your beauty perfectly. The princess had been the king's favorite since childhood, indulged in every whim. Thus she spoke without hesitation, certain her scheme would prevail. Once she marries the obsidian-tailed merman and lays merfolk eggs, her status will rise again, granting her absolute power to do as she pleases within the merfolk kingdom. My gaze shifted between my bewildered father and my sister, whose smiling eyes couldn't conceal the scheming beneath. Thorn stood nearby equally puzzled. He'd barely begun courting her when the second princess unexpectedly chose him of her own accord. Though not his original target, it made no difference. He remained still, wearing an expression of flustered disbelief. I smiled gently and said, since my sister favors the obsidian-tailed mermaid, I've no objections. How could I bear to disappoint you? Bowing again to the king, I declared, Father, the silver-tailed mermaid Emery pleases me greatly. She is my choice. The named Emery stood aloof at the periphery, her expression indifferent as if hearing another's name called twice, yet I remembered, when trapped by my sister in my past life, it was Emery who came to intervene. Years of abuse from his sister had left his body frail beyond measure. A mere flick of the wrist sent him crumpling to the ground like tissue paper. Unconscious, silver-tailed mermaids possess striking beauty, but their aloof and haughty nature made it difficult for them to blend in with their kin. Thus, despite Emery's exceptional looks, he remained an outsider among the merfolk, perpetually lingering on the fringes. Seeing Emery standing there unharmed filled me with relief. He'd escaped unscathed. What's the harm in being with him this lifetime? Things couldn't possibly get worse anyway. Oh dear, sister, are you really choosing a silver-tailed merman? I've heard they're extremely rare. Their reproductive abilities might be the poorest among merfolk. What if you can't even produce mermaid eggs? How dreadful that would be. My sister giggled behind her hand, pressing her whole body against Thorn as if she couldn't wait to proclaim to the world that he was her chosen one. The king showed faint displeasure at these words and was about to speak when I cut in first. Whether I can bear merfolk eggs isn't for you to decide, dear sister. There's plenty of time ahead. You'd do better to mind your own business. With that, I strode straight to Emery and led him away. Dahlia always assumed it was the abundant resources and strong fertility of the obsidian-tailed merfolk that allowed me to conceive so quickly. The truth is, I used my ancestral bloodline magic to alter Thorn's physique, enhancing our compatibility. That's why pregnancy came so swiftly. I never told Thorn the truth back then, so he kept pestering me daily for another child, convinced his virility was unmatched. But this method wasn't foolproof. There'd be no more mermaid eggs anytime soon. In his disappointment, Thorn started dallying with others behind my back. After catching him, I barred him from my chambers permanently. Dahlia thought she'd won the prize by striking first, little knowing how she'd handle his future dalliances. My sister's furious voice rang out behind me. What are you so smug about, Moira? Silver-tailed merfolk can't even lay eggs. The obsidian-tailed are the most fertile. Just you wait. I ignored her, but Emery beside me seemed puzzled. Your Highness, our silver-tailed kin are indeed rare and keep to ourselves. Why would you choose me? I chuckled. Like I said, because you're beautiful. Once chosen by the princess, I shall devote myself wholeheartedly, always prioritizing Her Highness above all. Emery's voice sounded behind me, and I couldn't help but curve my lips into a faint smile. Who says silver-tailed mermaids are aloof? Their hearts are tender. Once they claim someone as their own, they'll follow them through life and death. The king finally approved my sisters and my decision, ordering us to prepare for our weddings within a month. Emery brought over a box, his expression unreadable, but what was inside took me by surprise. The box contained a set of shimmering silver jewelry, radiating a cool yet gentle glow that dazzled the eyes. These are scales I collected during my molting seasons. Since the princess admires my fish scales, I selected the finest ones to craft this jewelry set. With a soft chuckle, I picked up a necklace to admire. Exquisite. I adore it. Just then, Dahlia and Thorn entered side by side, their expressions briefly contorting at the sight of the gorgeous jewelry in my hands. Pfft, just a set of jewelry. Thorn gifted me 3 different jade collections. Yours looks rather modest, dear sister. I shot them a frosty glance, couldn't be bothered with their nonsense, and gathered my things to leave. Dahlia deliberately blocked my path, clinging to Thorn with possessive arms and a taunting smirk. Sister, Thorn and I will surely have children soon after our wedding. You simply must attend the celebration banquet. Oh, unless you're still struggling with infertility by then, how heartbreaking. That would be for you. Before I could speak, Emery frowned and said, no need, we'll return the invitation when our child is born. I smirked, took Emery's hand, and said, let's go. The two behind us kept discussing pregnancy and egg-laying, as if reproduction was all they could think about. I couldn't be bothered to care, yet couldn't help thinking of Dante. He was just a toddler, barely able to call for his mother. When Dahlia in her madness took his life, a sudden gloom came over me, which Emery immediately noticed. Your Highness, what troubles you? He asked with concern. It's nothing, just remembering someone from the past. Forcing a smile, I changed the subject. The Lantern Festival is in 2 days. The streets will be lively. Would you accompany me? Emery readily agreed and accompanied me as we explored every nook and cranny of the streets. Riverside vendors sold floating lanterns. I bought one, lit it, and gently set it afloat on the water. As the lantern drifted lazily away, I found myself lost in thought, wondering where Dante might be at that moment. Chapter 2, a lantern's orange glow suddenly illuminated my face. Turning, I saw Emery standing there, having appeared without a sound. I lowered my gaze to the lantern's design and chuckled. Where did this lantern come from? It's absolutely adorable. Emery looked at me earnestly. Bought it from a nearby shop. May your sorrows be few and your smiles plentiful, Moira. It was the first time he'd called me by name. Playfully, I teased. Oh, I was actually saying you're the adorable one. Though the mermaid hadn't revealed her shimmering silver tail, the expression on her face was utterly intoxicating. The wedding day arrived in the blink of an eye. Dahlia and I were to be married simultaneously, with the bridal processions already waiting outside. Dahlia, more radiant than flowers, deliberately traced the vivid marks on her neck, shook out her crimson wedding robes, and hid a smirk behind her hand. I heard, you've been traveling quite often lately, dear sister. I nodded absently with little attention. What good is Emery anyway? I can't believe you still indulge him. Sister, if you don't keep a tighter rein after marriage, he'll walk all over you. Not like Thorn. He replaces everything I own with jade. I grew impatient, wondering why Emery still hadn't arrived. Oh, indeed, how could anyone compare? The Genbai household certainly has no shortage of jade. A flicker of wariness crossed Dahlia's face before she relaxed again, her words dripping with smug condescension. Sister, you're marrying into the Silvertail clan under uncertain circumstances. The Blacktail merfolk own multiple jade mines. If you ever face hardship, you must tell me. The Blacktail merfolk are indeed wealthy, with jade mines being their greatest asset, but I know their prosperity is merely superficial. When I first married into the Blacktail clan, I sensed signs of depletion in their jade mines, what outsiders perceive as boundless wealth is but a facade. This empire has long been teetering on the brink. After all, Genbai just got married and is trying to win Dahlia over, hence the excessive attentiveness. Once she stops laying eggs, all this pampering will vanish like morning mist. I deliberately turned to face her, flashing a knowing smile. If you fancy those jade pieces, go ahead, enjoy them while you can. They won't last forever. Just then, Emery appeared before me. My spirits instantly lifted as I abandoned the angry shouts behind me and walked toward him. On our wedding night, free from any annoying disturbances, there was only this impossibly beautiful man sitting quietly before me. My heart soared to its peak of happiness. With a playful grin, I ran my fingers through his silken hair and teased, pretty thing, let me pet your tail, won't you? Emery obediently unfurled his tail for me. The silver scales shimmered faintly under the glow of the moon pearls, growing ever more enigmatic. I stepped forward and embraced him, nearly intoxicated by his radiance, murmuring, "You're breathtaking," strands of hair intertwined, palms pressed against palms. The silver-tailed mermaid gently flicked her fins, stretching freely before silently drawing closer to the other with indigo scales. Just as I pinned him onto the bed, the passive one suddenly took charge, showering me with feather-light kisses. At first I welcomed it eagerly, but soon found myself overwhelmed. Silver truly is the most mesmerizing color for fish, but it's just bait. The deeper you go, the more you're hooked, until suddenly you're caught in the net below. Hey, this wasn't the script I originally signed up for. Months passed as Emery and I settled into a quiet, uneventful life. Nothing thrilling, but full of warmth. One morning after breakfast, I lounged lazily in Emery's arms flipping through a book. Someone rushed in. "Your Highness, the second princess is here." "She seems rather upset." I wasn't particularly surprised. Dahlia's situation had been quite precarious lately. When Dahlia first married into the Genbai family, she boldly declared she'd soon bear a prodigiously gifted heir. Months have passed without any movement from their side, yet the crowd of onlookers keeps growing, with all the gossip swirling around and Dahlia's inability to conceive. Life in the Kuru family must be tough for her, but why come to me? Wondering this, I had her let in to see what she wanted. Dahlia barged in without regard for others present and confronted me directly. "Moira, what did you mean by your words that day? Was this your doing?" I was confused at first, but gradually understood the reason from Dahlia's accusations and interrogations. It turned out to be about what I'd said during our wedding, when I hinted that the jade mines in Xianwei wouldn't last. Dahlia took it as me cursing her with infertility. The thought nearly made me burst out laughing. Egg-bearing has become her obsession. Every little thing makes her jump to that conclusion. I know Dahlia won't listen to reason, and helping others is the last thing on her mind. In fact, she'd rather fan the flames and let mistakes compound. "You're mistaken, dear sister. How could someone like me possibly manage that? Isn't the Genbai family richer than nations and peerless in power? Even if I wanted to do something to you, I'm utterly powerless." Dahlia's declining status within the Genbai clan was a sore spot, and this remark visibly struck a nerve. Her face momentarily contorted in anger. The contrast must be staggering for Dahlia. Had the powerful Genbai family not constantly favored her? The more I insisted, the more suspicious Dahlia grew, yet she couldn't find any proof. She glared at me viciously. "Don't get cocky. I'll get pregnant eventually. You're the one stuck with that useless merman Emery, doomed to never bear children." At those words, my expression turned icy as I showed her the door. "Let's not trouble our sister with our affairs. She should focus on her own problems instead." Unexpectedly, news soon broke that Dahlia was pregnant. I was surprised. Dahlia and I share the same father, and our constitutions are quite similar. I knew full well that a union between her and Thorn should have made conception nearly impossible, let alone achieving pregnancy within just 6 months. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen Dahlia's swollen belly with my own eyes. The Genbu clan threw lavish celebrations, and Thorn was absolutely beaming with pride. To them, this pregnancy meant securing a powerful heir with immense potential. The banquet overflowed with guests. Some even crashed the party just to get a word in and curry favor. Dahlia stood before me with a hand resting on her belly, casting a challenging look my way. "Sister, after all this time, you still show no signs. Oh dear, could it be you're the barren one?" Merfolk pregnancies are rare to begin with, and with Dahlia and Thorn's incompatible constitutions, something's definitely fishy here. I adjusted my sleeves, refusing to look at Dahlia's revolting face. Chapter 3. No mermaid has ever gotten pregnant this quickly. "You know exactly how you did it." Dahlia instinctively looked down at her belly, then she snapped her gaze back to me, guilt still flickering in her eyes. "What are you implying? Are you accusing me?" Jumping to conclusions without even hearing the full story. What rare stupidity, but merfolk have shorter late-term pregnancies. "She'll give birth in about 2 months. We'll see the truth then." "No particular meaning. Just wishing you a smooth delivery." I smirked, casting a pointed glance at her belly before sauntering off. 2 months had passed since Dahlia's due date, yet everything remained eerily quiet as if nothing was amiss. Even the king was denied visitation, and the entire Genbai clan's atmosphere had undergone a night and day transformation. That's when I knew something was wrong with the child. A few days later, I received word from the king summoning me to the Genbai clan's territory. Of course I'll bring Emery along. Among the Obsidian Tail clan, Dahlia was cradling her pup while shouting excitedly, This was a mermaid with an azure tail. This is mine and Thorn's child. The color mutation comes from intertribal merfolk breeding. The moment I stepped in and heard that remark, I leaned against the doorway to enjoy the show. Mutations are just atavism. This color only appears if it existed in our ancestry. Thorn glared coldly at Dahlia. There were no blue-tailed merfolk in Thorn's lineage. Unaware of this fact and completely missing the implication, Dahlia kept arguing about possible blue-tailed ancestors in both bloodlines. Thorn's face grew increasingly dark, radiating an unprecedented aura of fury. There must be some misunderstanding here. Thorn, you know how deeply Dahlia loves you. She'd never betray you. The king acted as peacemaker, urgently trying to calm Thorn down. Hearing her father's defense, Dahlia cautiously cradled their child and offered the baby to Thorn. Look. This is our child. Those eyes and nose are just like yours. Thorn coldly took the baby, and before Dahlia could show any joy, he stepped back and raised it high. Tell me who you had this with, or I'll drop it right now. Speak, Dahlia screamed. Thorn, how dare you? This is our child, our own child. The infant in Thorn's arms began wailing, its thin cries piercing my eardrums as I winced. Merling hatchlings grow rapidly after emerging from their eggs. Soon enough, this one would start speaking. My Dante was just this size when Dahlia took his life. Hearing the cries, Thorn sneered and abruptly released his grip, hurling the Merling child toward the ground. Startled, I immediately reached out to catch it, while Emery beside me also stepped forward simultaneously, barely managing to catch the child. Dahlia snatched them away, her face pale and her whole body trembling. The onlookers were also terrified by the scene and began offering words of comfort. Finally, someone suggested, I've heard of a spiritual stone called the kinship tester that can determine blood relations. It's been kept in the royal collection for generations. Why not use it to settle this? Dahlia immediately protested. This is mine and Thorn's child. How dare you use some worthless rock instead? The king wiped his sweat nervously, stammering, well, we do have one, but, I scoffed inwardly. His hesitation proved even the king doubted Dahlia's claim, yet Thorn turned to the king at once, demanding he produce the spirit stone. Everyone agreed to the method, and immediately summoned the kinship testing stone. The little mermaid's blood dripped onto the stone, emitting a faint glow. When Thorn added a drop of his blood, the spirit stone remained completely inert. No, this stone must be defective. Dahlia desperately scrambled for excuses. Thorn grabbed Dahlia's hand and smeared her blood on the stone. The kinship stone glowed with an eerie blue light, confirming she was the little mermaid's mother. Well, that's unexpected. Thorn almost raised another man's child. Murmurs of gossip rose from below as I pulled Emery aside to watch the spectacle, barely suppressing my laughter. No wonder Dahlia couldn't conceive before, then suddenly got pregnant. She must have taken a lover to get pregnant. Just one compatible partner would significantly boost her chances, but Dahlia forgot their differing tail colors would reveal the truth, unless she desperately settled for a blue-tailed merman in her panic. Thorn's face darkened completely as he snatched the paternity stone and ordered his men to find that blue-tailed merman. Before long, a blue-tailed merman was brought in. Turned out he'd been lurking suspiciously outside when the guards spotted him. To everyone's surprise, the test confirmed he was the little mermaid's biological father. I couldn't help but marvel at the merman's striking beauty. No wonder Dahlia had been drawn to him with those exquisite features. The blue-tailed mermaid confessed without denial, with both witnesses and material evidence present. Thorn's fury was written all over his face. Dahlia, is this what you call giving me a child? Seeing no way to deny it, Dahlia began making excuses for herself. If you hadn't kept nagging about wanting a child, would I have resorted to this? If you weren't so inferior to him, it would have been your child I'm carrying. Dahlia's attitude nearly made Thorn lose his composure on the spot. He stormed off after throwing out a final threat. You leave me no choice but to retaliate. After the spectacle, Emery and I headed home. He kept glancing at me hesitantly during the walk. Moira, do you want children too? I won't force it. He'll come back when the time is right, I thought to myself, realizing what this was about, as I took Emery's hand. Emery, you're the one who matters most to me. Emery wasn't prepared for such a direct confession, silently squeezing my hand in return before murmuring, me too. But thinking of Dante, I sighed inwardly. This lifetime might pass without us ever meeting again. Whether Dahlia can conceive remains uncertain. while rumors of Thorn's wild escapades keep surfacing. It wasn't long before Dahlia came knocking at my door again, tearfully begging for my help. Sister, please help me. Thorn never comes home at night. Who knows how many pretty mermaids he's been with. If I don't get pregnant soon, he'll bring another woman into our home. None of this surprised me. Even in my past life when I bore Dante, Thorn kept taking lovers when denied a second child, with Dahlia betraying him first and leaving no heir. Thorn saw no reason to maintain his facade any longer. Remember how she stole my child when no one was looking, murdered him in cold blood, then turned on me with torture that ended my life. Moira, how dare you live better than me? I'll make sure you die without a grave to rest in. Your soul shall never find peace. I'll never forget the madness in her eyes or the venom in her curse. She chose the same path I took initially when given another chance. So why is she suffering now? Sis, you must have a solution, right? Please help me. With that, Dahlia rushed forward and desperately clutched my hand, sobbing uncontrollably. I lowered my gaze to the wrist she was gripping, then slowly but firmly pulled away. There's nothing I can do. Merfolk pregnancies are inherently difficult, and you've damaged your constitution by not resting properly. Combined with your biological incompatibility with Thorn, having a child will just take time. Dahlia refused to believe me, convinced I was lying to her. Moira, you're holding out on me, you've got solutions but won't share them, can't stand seeing me happier than you. Just wait, I'll find my own way without you. I won't let you win. With a venomous glare, she turned on her heel and stormed out. I shrugged helplessly. While I genuinely didn't want to help, the truth was I simply couldn't. And that's the honest truth. In my past life, I conceived by tapping into the ancestral matrilineal power within me, which altered Thorn's physiology. This method essentially burns through one's lifespan, each use shortens it, and the technique can't be employed repeatedly in quick succession. Though I succeeded in bearing a child this way, it left me with barely any life remaining. This time, I won't make the same mistake again. Just as I was ready to let nature take its course and even accept that pregnancy might not happen, a wonderful surprise came our way. Months later, Emery looked at my belly and asked, Moira, has your stomach been growing bigger lately? I froze for a moment, then instinctively touched my abdomen. Life's been too comfortable lately. I just thought I'd gained weight, never considered other possibilities. Chapter 4. You mean? I asked hesitantly. Emery gently placed his hand on my belly with cautious hope. Could we be expecting a little one? Before I could respond, he scooped me onto the bed, told me to stay put, and rushed off to fetch the doctor. Watching Emery's flustered retreat, I couldn't help but chuckle. Within minutes, the physician was hastily ushered in. The doctor calmly took my pulse as I leaned against the cushions, though it was Emery waiting nearby who seemed most anxious. Fortunately, the physician soon rose with clasped hands, offering cheerful congratulations. Congratulations to you both. Her Highness is with child, about a month away from delivery. I stood there stunned. Just over a month until birth meant she'd been pregnant for nearly 3 months already, yet throughout this time, I'd felt completely normal, eating and drinking without any noticeable changes. This little one's been such an easy blessing, I murmured with wonder. Emery sat beside me holding my hand, but looked increasingly troubled. Are you really okay? Don't you feel unwell? His demeanor suggested he wanted me to stay in bed indefinitely. I found it both amusing and exasperating, telling Emery not to fuss over me and just act normally, but Emery had other ideas, and started chasing me around daily to force-feed me snacks. A steady stream of tonics flowed in, transformed into exquisite delicacies through ingenious preparations. Within half a month, I could already feel myself putting on weight. After dinner, I lounged in the courtyard as Emery sat beside me, peeling a pearl fruit to hand over. These rare fruits were practically priceless treasures, yet Emery served them to me as casual dessert. I was initially surprised by the Silvertail clan's substantial wealth, to which Emery merely responded with a faint smile. Though the Silvertail merfolk are few in number, they've amassed considerable fortune. It's understandable you wouldn't know. They rarely interact with other clans. After this enlightening explanation, I took Emery's hand, feeding in stride without batting an eye. Just days before my due date, we attended a royal cousin's wedding where I unexpectedly reunited with Dahlia after so long. Dahlia recently became pregnant again, though the method remains unclear, under Thorn's watchful eye. The child is undoubtedly theirs, never one to play the victim. Dahlia's pregnancy coincided with the abrupt end of Thorne's notorious philandering rumors. The couple now appears reconciled, though what tensions simmer beneath the surface remains anyone's guess. Sister, why sit here alone when there's such merrymaking afoot? I was nibbling on the pastry Emery slid my way, just wanting to quietly coast through the wedding. But of course certain people had to butt in. With a sigh, I raised my hand. Slightly. Excuse me, you're blocking my light. Dahlia didn't take offense, simply repositioning herself to keep facing me. The baby bumps becoming more noticeable. What wedding gift has my dear sister prepared? Let's not embarrass ourselves when presenting the gifts later. I smiled faintly. I was about to ask you the same, little sister, with the Genbai mermaid clan's prestigious status. Your gift must be quite extravagant. No, by my calculations, the Genbai clan's financial situation can't be too favorable these days, though outsiders remain unaware. Their own people must have noticed. You can't hide the belt-tightening in daily necessities. Dahlia's expression faltered momentarily before she quickly regained her composure, looking down her nose at me with haughty disdain. Naturally, the congratulatory gift we presented was of exceptional quality. It seems Genbai's fortunes have truly declined. Yet they still produced an extravagantly valuable gift to save face. Dahlia brought up the pregnancy matter again. Sis, look, even without your help, I still got pregnant. Once my baby's born, you'll never outdo me. I was speechless. Since when was this a competition, though? As I eyed Dahlia's noticeably larger than normal baby bump, could she be carrying multiples? Now that'd be something special. Why don't you keep a closer eye on Thorne? I just saw him chatting with another pretty mermaid. Stung by the remark, Dahlia didn't even bother verifying its truth before rushing off to find Thorne. Did we actually see Thorne earlier? Emery asked, confused since we'd been together the whole time without spotting him. I chuckled. Of course not. Dahlia was being annoying, so I made it up. Midway through the wedding ceremony, a sudden sharp pain in my belly made me clutch Emery's hand and curl forward. I recognized these labor pains immediately, collapsing weakly into Emery's arms. Emery, who'd been watching me closely, swept me up the moment he noticed something was wrong. As contractions racked my body, I grew disoriented and lay motionless in Emery's embrace. In a dazed state, I felt myself being gently laid on the bed as the surrounding clamor faded, replaced by new murmurs drifting in. Time blurred before a sudden lightness washed over me. Exhaustion pulled me under, and I surrendered to sleep. When I awoke, Emery sat beside me. On a nearby cot rested a single egg. Emery noticed my stirring instantly, leaning down to brush a kiss against my skin, eyes brimming with tenderness and concern. You've been through a lot, Moira. Actually, it wasn't too bad this time. The baby behaved well these past months, and the delivery went smoothly. In my previous life, the special conception method made childbirth far more painful. Afterwards, Thorne even demanded I personally tend to the mare egg, denying me proper rest, but Emery showed me nothing but kindness, taking care of the mare egg himself. Before long, I fully recovered and was eagerly awaiting the little mermaids hatching when unexpected news arrived. Dahlia had also given birth. By the timeline, Dahlia shouldn't have delivered this soon. What's more, there wasn't a single update about the newborn's condition. Everything felt off, just as expected. Father sent another summons from the Obsidian Tail territory, demanding my presence. Remembering last time's incident, my curiosity was instantly piqued. I could hardly wait to see what fresh drama awaited. The moment I stepped inside, I witnessed Thorne and Dahlia locked in a physical struggle. I was stunned. Weren't these two supposed to have reconciled? The last time they fought this fiercely was during the birth of the teal-tailed merfolk. At this thought, I realized Dahlia's newborn wasn't present, so I turned to my conflicted-looking father and asked. The king sighed and gestured toward the inner chamber. They're inside. Go see for yourself. He seemed to hesitate, words caught in his throat, but ultimately remained silent, stepping into the chamber. The sight of 2 eggs on the bed made everything clear. Dahlia was indeed carrying 2 hatchlings, but the 2 eggs she laid were conjoined. This means either one egg is dead, which would inevitably affect the other, or the 2 hatchlings have partially fused bodies. In either case, the hatched offspring will have some degree of deformity. Stepping out of the inner chamber, Thorne and Dahlia were still arguing. Thorne refused to acknowledge the deformed child, while Dahlia kept screaming, "Didn't you want a child? Here's your baby. Why are you rejecting it now? You brought that witch doctor to dose me, then doubled the potion to conceive twins." This is what your meddling created. It's all your fault, Thorn snarled. This is what happens when you force premature labor, you lunatic. The child wasn't ready. After listening for a while, the pieces finally fell into place. Thorn consulted a witch doctor for fertility potions and overdosed to conceive twins, then Dahlia, for some insane reason, insisted on inducing early labor right after my delivery. This resulted in deformed eggs being hatched. Now they're blaming each other. One claims premature birth caused it, the other swears the witch doctor's potion was faulty. If you had money, would you even be seeing that quack? Useless trash. Well, running out of cash too. The Genba clan is destined to decline. After that day, both Thorn and Dahlia became much more subdued. With the dwindling jade resources they depend on, the entire Obsidian Tail clan stands on the brink of collapse, but I've stopped paying attention to all that. Our little mermaid is about to hatch, and both Emery and I are preparing for this momentous event. Chapter 5. To my surprise, Dahlia came knocking 3 times. Sister, please help me. The Obsidian Tail merfolk are in dire straits, and I'm treated as an outcast. You're the only one who can save me now. I'm baffled. Do I look like some kind of benevolent mermaid to you? Even asking the Sea King would be more helpful than coming to me. I can't help you. The Obsidian Tail clan hasn't fallen so low that we can't sustain you. If you want something, earn it yourself. Dahlia pleaded with me endlessly, but when I still refused, she started hurling insults. Moira, how can you be so heartless? Can't you see how miserable I am right now? Then she turned her fury toward Emery beside me. And you were supposed to be mine. Why couldn't I conceive with Emery or Thorn? How dare you hog all the blessings? What madness is this? Wicked schemes never bear good fruit. Frowning at Dahlia's deranged expression, I was inexplicably reminded of the day she murdered Dante, an ominous foreboding creeping into my heart. All I wanted was a child. Is that so wrong? If I can't have one, neither will you. My heart lurched. Ignoring Dahlia's obstinate nonsense, I spun around to check on the child. The nursery was empty, the merling egg gone from its cradle. Thorn lay motionless nearby, his condition unknown. My mind went blank with a roar. Seeing red, I nearly charged out to murder Dahlia then and there. A faint whimper snapped me back to reality. Emery emerged from under the bed cradling a squirming infant. Our child, turns out. While Dahlia was talking to us up front, Thorn sneaked in trying to steal the mermaid egg. Right at that moment, the baby mermaid hatched and bit Thorn's vulnerable spot when he least expected it. Managing to escape, I clutched the child tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. Emery held me close and said, I'm sorry. If I'd stayed in the room to look after the child, none of this would have happened. I shook my head, knowing Emery only followed because he feared Dahlia might harm me. But when Dahlia revealed the reincarnation secret, I told Emery everything about our past lives to avoid misunderstandings. Learning what Dahlia did to me in our previous life, Emery's disgust deepened. I wish I could have stopped her back then. I smiled faintly. You did help me. It's just, Dante. Dante is the only pain in my heart. My deepest regret is failing to save him back then, letting him suffer so much at such a tender age. Emery looked at me and comforted. Don't grieve. Perhaps your bond with Dante isn't severed yet. Someday, he'll come back to you. Having regained what was lost, I immediately told my father the king without hesitation. Even the king couldn't side with Dahlia this time. She was punished according to the law, doomed to spend the rest of her days in perpetual darkness. Thorn's body was carelessly discarded, left unattended. Emery and I had a beautiful silver-tailed merman child, whom we named Rafe. Rafe was exceptionally gifted, growing rapidly as the king groomed him to be the successor. As for Emery and me, we traveled the world or settled in various places until I became pregnant again years later. As the teal-colored little mermaid emerged from her shell, that familiar face made me blurt out, Dante. Emery smiled and said, see, those bound by fate will always find their way back, and, story 2, what is the ultimate form of winning without effort? When the zombies arrive, I am in my self-built house made of copper and iron, munching on corn and petting my dog. In the yard below, the zombie king tirelessly plows my field, lured by the dangling sausage above his head. Oh, and not too far away, my ex-boyfriend, turned zombie, wanders aimlessly through my orchard. Maybe he should plow the field too. At this suggestion, the zombie king bares his teeth fiercely, scaring my stiff ex-boyfriend into sprinting away for miles. Nicola, let's break up. The grisly, gaping mouth before me suddenly vanishes, replaced by Alexis's constipated expression. My mind echoes emptily. I have not yet recovered from the fear of being bitten by a zombie, my body shivering. You know my family is the richest in the city, the gap between us is just too big. Hearing Alexis's confident speech, I suddenly burst into laughter. I survived, not only survived but also returned to 6 months before the zombie outbreak. In the face of life and death, being dumped by a jerk no longer seemed important, so, under Alexis's astonished gaze, I opened my palm. Compensation for wasting my youth, 2 million. 6 months later, the zombie virus outbreak would turn densely populated cities into the first to fall. Not only interactions between humans and zombies but also between humans themselves would become a massive safety risk. This time, with 6 months at my disposal, I would not end up cold and hungry, eventually dying in fear at the hands of zombies as I had in my past life. The most absurd thing was, at the moment of my death, a broadcast announced our victory. I smile ruefully, without the energy to dwell on the past. With half a year left, I needed to prepare for the sudden onset of disaster. With Alexis's 2 million, I redeemed the orchard that had been mortgaged after my father's death. Rows upon rows of fruit trees ensured I wouldn't starve. The day I signed the contract, I hired a construction crew to demolished the small wooden hut used for beekeeping and began building a 5-story villa made of concrete, 2 stories below ground, 2 above. Young lady, do you need such a big house just for yourself? 2 floors above ground should be enough. Uncle, it's too hot above ground, the fruits spoil easily. I need to store the picked fruits underground first before selling them. Wouldn't a cellar be enough for that? No, far from enough. Insisting repeatedly, I had the foreman bring in an excavator from afar, digging out a 5 to 6 meter deep foundation to build 2 underground levels and even a well. I insisted on using the best materials for construction and waterproofing. The walls were twice as thick as those of ordinary houses, and I opted for double-layered tempered glass windows. The surrounding walls stood 5 meters tall. Perhaps my demands were too high, as the house took 5 months to complete, leaving just 29 days until the outbreak of the zombies. Looking at the finished house, the workers murmured among themselves, "Look at this house, such small windows, walls so thick, it's like a bunker, doesn't seem like a place for a young lady." I felt a sinking feeling in my heart but swallowed the words on my lips. I didn't want to compromise my safety out of momentary soft-heartedness. 2 days later, on October 7th, there would be a massive car accident on the Yunqing Expressway. The suburban construction team of 57 people, none would survive. This was the reason I specifically paid extra to hire this construction crew. The construction team consisted of a little over 50 people. Despite having a confidentiality agreement with them, the outbreak of zombies was inevitable, and it was certain that others would target this place. I felt as if my heart was pounding, filled with anxiety and guilt. The construction team left early in the morning, and the leader handed me a puppy, just born a month ago, placing it in my hands. "Little lady, you seem to lack a sense of security. Raising a dog can help you guard the house." In truth, I was hesitant, fearing that the dog's barking might attract zombies. However, when the puppy softly whimpered and licked my fingers, my heart melted instantly. Humanity would have to battle zombies for a whole 10 years. Being alone was just too lonely. I named the puppy Lucky, a name easy to live up to. "Uncle, I just checked the calendar, and the next couple of days are not suitable for long trips. If you want to go out of town, it's better to leave a few days later." That was all I could say to him. The rest was just wishing them luck. No sooner had the construction team left than I drove off in my newly bought pickup truck to gather supplies. With only 29 days to prepare, there was a lot to buy. First, I swept through a seed store, purchasing 100 kilograms each of corn and wheat seeds, a few kilograms of various vegetables, and several commonly used pesticides and farming tools. Filling the truck to the brim, the next day, I bought dozens of books on farming and breeding from a bookstore, and then stocked my backyard fish pond with several hundred fish fry. Having only ever kept pet fish before, I hoped the experience would come in handy later. To avoid suspicion, I procured rice and vacuum-sealed rice under the guise of restocking at various wholesale markets in the city. Since rice has a shelf life of only 3 years, and vacuum-sealed rice lasts at most 18 months, I only stored 800 kilograms of vacuum-sealed rice but secured a ton each of rice and wheat, along with 200 barrels of cooking oil. I also bought 100 packs of noodles, 50 boxes of instant noodles, and 50 kilograms of tofu skin and dried tofu. By the time I had finished these purchases, the 2 million provided by Alexis was nearly depleted. All the water facilities in the house were connected to a well in the yard, so I didn't have to worry about water shortages for the time being. But living without electricity was not an option. Biting the bullet, I took advantage of various online deals to buy solar panels, covering my entire rooftop. I also purchased a biogas digester commonly used in rural areas to generate gas for electricity and handle waste disposal. Besides securing a water supply, I also bought a water purifier. If there was excess electricity from the solar panels, I could purify well water for drinking if needed. After setting up the basic infrastructure, the rest was buying a large quantity of daily necessities. Under the guise of donating to mountainous areas, I wholesale purchased 100 boxes of sanitary pads, 50 boxes of compressed biscuits, and 50 boxes of potato chips, along with a small quantity of nuts. Due to the small capacity of the pickup, I had to make at least 4 trips a day, and for fear of revealing my secret, I moved even the heaviest items by myself. Fortunately, the construction team later installed a pulley system, saving me the trouble of carrying hundreds of kilograms up and down the stairs alone. Just before the apocalypse, the knives I ordered online finally arrived. I breathed a sigh of relief and locked the front door tightly. After a month of preparations, I had finally gathered all the necessary supplies. By then, Lucky, who had been weaned just a month earlier, was already able to follow me everywhere. Luckily, like me, he was calm and steady, not a barking dog. I was ready to wait out the end of the world in seclusion, but on the 3rd day of the zombie outbreak, someone knocked on my gate. It was a man and a woman, desperately banging on the gate. Open the door, quick, save us, there are zombies outside, please, I beg you, pity us, please let us in, they pleaded. You never know how quickly humanity can sink. Soon after the apocalypse began, some learned to trample over the flesh of their comrades to survive. In the orchard, the scattered wandering zombies, drawn by the noise, were quietly approaching. The woman screamed and barely managed to hold her iron axe in front of her. Open the door. Are you heartless people going to watch your own kind get devoured by zombies? Despite their disheveled appearance, they were not messy, they were frightened but not panicked, and their axe was thick with blood. More importantly, there was another person with them, a wounded man. I stood upstairs with binoculars, indifferently waiting for them to leave on their own, but instead of leaving, after shouting a few times, they started hacking at my front door with their axe. There must be someone inside. You won't open the door. Fine, I'll chop it down and get in to eat you, bite you, tear you apart. These lunatics. Even though my door was made of iron, it couldn't necessarily withstand such continued assault. I turned around, picked up a watermelon knife. What do we do? Bing, the zombies are coming, one shouted. Why not use the guy in the car as a shield? The other suggested. But he's my brother. Intimidated by the man's glare, the woman immediately stopped talking and obediently dragged a bloody man from the car, placing him in front of them. The man on the ground, barely breathing, managed to move back a few steps but still lay powerlessly on the ground. I'll come back for you, Bing swore, hacking the door once more. Seeing the door remain intact, he dragged the woman back to the car and sped off. The apocalypse had just begun, and most zombies were still slow. After a moment's thought, I ran downstairs, opened the door, and dragged the injured man inside, wiping the blood from his face. Wow, it was him, the zombie king, the one from the legends who still retained some humanity. Unknown to most, at the end of the apocalypse, some zombies slowly regain their senses and turn back into humans. The zombie king was the first, and I knew this because I was one of the humans who had once escaped from under his command. Kill me? Why? In this apocalyptic world, everyone schemed desperately to survive. Why did he want me to kill him? I've been bitten. Will turn. I retrieved his wallet, pulling out his ID card, only then realizing that besides his handsome face, he had a poetically rich name, Aldrich. Sitting beside him for a long time, I eventually threw him into a hunting pit at the door before he could turn. If a zombie king existed, no other zombies would appear within several kilometers, and I wouldn't have to farm secretively. That night, my dog Rich kept pacing by my bed, Murmuring incessantly, I went downstairs with him, only to see Aldrich in the pit, his skin turning a dull gray, scratching at the sides, as if trying to climb out, perhaps smelling my scent. The pit was lined with thick iron pipes, so I wasn't worried about him getting out, but it made me wonder about another issue. Would zombies die if they went a long time without food? They probably would. On the 5th day of being a zombie, Aldrich no longer showed any interest in me, lying on the ground like a dead body. Curiously, I threw a stone down, he didn't even dodge, but when I threw a chicken leg, he suddenly leaped up and caught it. He was so fast. No wonder he was destined to become a zombie king. After feeding Aldrich a chicken leg, he seemed to have taken a liking to me. Whenever I approached the pit, he would stand up and hiss. However, I didn't get my money by chance, and I couldn't afford to keep feeding him chicken legs endlessly. Then it struck me, the chicken eggs at home, the ones I bought from the village to hatch, guaranteed by the locals to be viable, I had originally planned to use them to make steamed egg custard. I had never considered raising poultry because the sound of chickens could attract zombies, but if I had a zombie king under my control, I wouldn't have anything to fear. After rewarding Aldrich with a sausage, I started researching how to incubate eggs. Fortunately, the poultry farming book I bought mentioned how to do this, since the weather had been good and there was surplus electricity from the solar panels. I decided to make an incubator with a heater. However, due to poor temperature control, the eggs went bad on the 4th day. Aldrich, not fed meat for a few days, quickly became sluggish again. Feeding him meat all the time was painful for me, but I feared he wouldn't turn into a zombie king if I didn't feed him, so I reluctantly threw another chicken leg into the pit. A few days later, Aldrich was lying lifeless in the hunting pit again. Fortunately, I had bought too many male rabbits, which were constantly fighting, so I threw one down to feed Aldrich. In less than a second, the rabbit was in Aldrich's stomach. It seemed that having tasted fresh meat for the first time, Aldrich was especially excited and kept howling out of the pit. I couldn't keep feeding him for nothing. The oranges in the garden were ripening. Because I was afraid of zombies, I only picked a few from the trees near the door. If I could tame Aldrich, it would be great to have him accompany me to pick more oranges. With this in mind, I started going out to cut grass for the rabbits when there were no zombies around, then divided a rabbit into 4 parts and stored them in the cellar to feed Aldrich regularly. After a week of this routine, Aldrich only showed excitement during feeding times. Even when half of a dead rabbit fell into the pit, he remained unresponsive. It was time to test the results of my feeding. Wearing thick gloves, I slowly reached into the pit. Aldrich raised his head to sniff, slowly opened his mouth, and my heart raced. Just as I was about to retract my hand, he closed his mouth. Looking confused, I handed down rabbit meat, and he quickly bit and swallowed it without hesitation. Indeed, he responded only to food. The next day after feeding him, I decided to let him out. Although Aldrich had shown almost no aggression towards me, I didn't dare to be careless. I prepared 2 thick dog chains in advance, securing one end around his neck and the other to a stone pillar in the yard before daring to open the iron cover of the hunting pit. As soon as I opened a gap just wide enough for one person, Aldrich shot up at an incredible speed, heading straight for me. I held my breath in fright, thankful that the chain jerked him back, preventing him from reaching me. Just as I relaxed and reached for a chicken leg to tempt him again, Aldrich, looking puzzled, tugged at the iron chain around his neck. With a gentle pull, the chain snapped in 2. In that instant, my blood ran cold, my face tightened, and sweat poured down uncontrollably. I had prepared for everything, but I didn't expect to die because of my own cleverness. Aldrich approached me step by step, his heavy steps slightly unsteady as if he was still not accustomed to his body. Gripping the melon knife in my sweaty palm, I felt so weak I could barely lift the blade. To cut or not to cut? If he becomes a zombie king, he might regain his senses, turning into a living being with supernatural powers. It seems a bit of a pity to kill him now, doesn't it? In my hesitation, Aldrich approached closer and closer. I closed my eyes, shouted loudly, and swung my knife down. The blade trembled heavily, causing pain in my palm, and then it emitted a crisp cracking sound, breaking into several pieces. I was stunned. Early zombies were still made of flesh and blood, just severing their necks would immobilize them. But Aldrich, he seemed to have skin and bones as tough as metal. Aldrich, still looking confused, walked straight forward and started eating a chicken leg that had fallen on the ground. For some reason, I Suddenly remembered hiding in the ruins of a supermarket, picking up bread crumbs. Back then, Aldrich stood not far away. While I just wanted to have one last full meal before dying, he threw me a pack of instant noodles. My first full meal after the apocalypse was given by a zombie, fear and regret intertwined. I crouched down and cried bitterly. I, who had once been shown the greatest kindness, had judged a zombie with the most malicious mindset, just because he was a zombie, even though he had once saved me. Aldrich watched me cry, seemingly losing interest in the chicken leg in his mouth. After a long while, he slowly squatted down in front of me, and the chicken leg fell right in front of me for me to eat. I tentatively reached out to take it, and he showed no reaction. After a moment's hesitation, I finally unlocked the iron chain around his neck. There was no choice. The zombie king was too strong, and I was afraid he might deform the pillar if he continued to be chained. At night, I locked the door tightly and withdrew the collapsible ladder from the first to the second floor. I didn't dare to close my eyes all night, and my pet dog trembled with fear all night long. Holding my dog, I barely made it until sunrise. Looking out from the balcony, Aldrich was obediently sitting at the door, looking like he was waiting for me to feed him. Hesitating for a moment, I still brought him 2 sausages. Aldrich leaped and bit into the sausages. As a zombie king, it turned out that sausages were his favorite food, easy to please. After breakfast, I decided to make some tofu and clean the stone mill in the yard, ready to have Aldrich turn it. Turns out this zombie king was too lazy to work. With no choice, I made a cap with a bar for him, hanging a sausage in front, and he briskly started turning the mill. Aldrich ran so fast that it took less than half an hour to grind a bucket. After setting the tofu, I planned to find other uses for Aldrich, like helping me pick tangerines. The tangerine season was almost over. It would be a pity not to pick them now. I strapped a basket on Aldrich's back and tied a trailer behind him, then took a watermelon knife and went to the orchard to pick tangerines. Maybe it was because of Aldrich's presence, but I hardly ever saw any zombies near my home. After picking a cart full of tangerines and feeling fortunate, I suddenly heard the sound of a car engine not far away. I pulled Aldrich and hid, but then I heard chaotic shouting coming from down the mountain. Oh no, has someone stolen the crystals from my old den? My house might be able to keep out zombies, but it might not stand against the depravity of humans. In a panic, I grabbed Aldrich and rushed back. They were fighting for their lives. The person who climbed out first had made it to the roadside. Unfortunately, the person behind him clung desperately to his ankle. In a fit of panic and despair, he picked up a stone from the riverbank and, while crying out, smashed it down on the head of the person behind him repeatedly until it was a bloody mess before he could stop. Bing! Don't blame me, Alexis. Beside me, sensing the blood, Aldrich started to grow restless. I quickly pulled a sausage from my bag and stuffed it into Aldrich's mouth without even peeling it. He adored the sausage more than his own mother, gradually calming down as he gnawed on it. Racing down to the river valley with the increasingly strange Lord of the Dead, I saw Alexis lying on the ground, his skin turning a ghastly pale gray. Alexis, hearing my voice, Alexis slowly lifted his head and struggled to crawl towards me. Save me, Nicola, save me. He had been bitten. It was too late for him. When the apocalypse ends, some zombies regain their senses and turn back into humans. I wondered if Alexis would be one of those lucky few, but just as this thought crossed my mind, Alexis began to twist unnaturally and slowly got to his feet, lunging at me. The newly turned zombie Alexis didn't realize who was standing next to me. In an instant, Aldrich swatted him aside with a slap. He growled, fiercely pressing Alexis's head into the mud, a sound like a territorial lion being invaded escaping his lips. Indeed, he was conscious enough to save me. It seems the days of feeding him sausages were not in vain. I tiptoed and patted his head. My precious good boy, how interesting. Suddenly, beside the now dead Bing, a male voice mixed with a harsh electrical noise spoke up. Who? I followed the sound and saw a device resembling a recorder on Bing's waist making the noise. How did you manage it? How did you raise a king of the dead and make him obey you? It's incredible. Besides me, someone else has hoarded so much supplies. He saw my stash. Is he in my house? I didn't expect someone to have stored so much food and secured such a strategic location during the apocalypse. The voice from the walkie-talkie, like a lightning strike, pierced my heart. It's as if you knew the apocalypse was coming and prepared thoroughly for it. Who are you? No need to rush. you'll find out soon. Enough, we'll meet soon. Slowly, the walkie-talkie fell silent. I stood there, goosebumps forming on my skin. I had always thought I created a safe and joyful haven for myself, never imagining someone had been monitoring my life all along. Who is he, and what does he want? I never heard of this person in my past life. The fear of the unknown felt like a poisonous hand tightly gripping my throat. I must go home first and see. I reattached Aldrich to the orange trailer, and it took me a moment to realize something. When had Aldrich become so fast? Could it be just because he was fed? Do zombies also get low blood sugar? I couldn't figure it out. Passing by Alexis, I hesitated for a second or two, then also tied him up, partly because of the 2 million face value, and partly because I wanted to know if all zombies could be tamed like Aldrich. If not, dangling a sausage to make him work alongside Aldrich wouldn't be a bad idea. Back home, I intended to throw Alexis into the same pit where I had kept Aldrich initially, but this guy snarled and refused to let me, even giving Alexis a big smack on the face and then jumping into the pit himself to claim the spot. This old sixth really had me beaten. Since digging another pit was virtually impossible for me, I securely tied Alexis to a large tree outside the door. Ordinary zombies might have great strength, but they aren't monstrously strong like Aldrich. Tied up as he was, I still had more than enough control. After dealing with Alexis, I hurried into the house. Inside, everything seemed peaceful, as if nothing had changed, but Lucky, who always greeted me at the door, was nowhere to be seen. Lucky, my heart sank. After calling several times, I finally saw a little black figure crawl out from under the bed. Lucky had never behaved like this before. Someone must have visited while I was away. However, there were no signs of forced entry at the main door. After carefully inspecting the tall courtyard walls, I finally found muddy footprints on them. Someone had climbed over my 5-meter-high courtyard wall, and not just one person. They must be no ordinary people. My face turned ashen as I pondered over this, and then I saw Lucky barking furiously at the light bulb above the main door. I fetched a ladder, removed the light cover, and found a small listening device inside. I felt a chill run down my spine. Holding Lucky, I searched the entire house and found several more surveillance devices, covering every corner of my home. These devices were smaller than a fingernail, utterly pervasive. If not for Lucky, I might have continued living under someone's surveillance indefinitely. Who could they be? I had only been out to pick oranges for 4 hours, yet they managed to enter my house silently, install numerous cameras, and leave without a trace. After a restless night, I decided to enhance my security measures. The next day, as I was about to head out with Aldrich for work, I was taken aback by what I saw at the pit's edge. The pit was littered with ham sausage casings, far more than I had taken out. In my rush to find all the surveillance devices the previous day, I had left the door open. I hurried to the storeroom to check, only to find that all the ham sausages were gone. Had a zombie stolen from me? Aldrich, I said, threatening to cut off his food supply. Angrily, I walked to the pit's edge and noticed something was off with Aldrich. He lay there listlessly, his skin flushing red, reddening skin. Can zombies overeat to the point of fever? Puzzled, I watched as Aldrich suddenly opened his eyes, let out a sharp howl, and struck the ground with his claw, creating a deep pit. Had he upgraded again? Eating ham sausages caused an upgrade. Before, I didn't store many ham sausages, but there was a sausage factory about 20 kilometers away. I decided to check it out with Aldrich to see if any sausages were left and to pick up some barbed wire and a generator, because there were restrictions on buying gasoline. I didn't have much left from before the apocalypse and wanted to see if I could get some at a gas station. The post-apocalyptic city was desolate, with cars abandoned all over the roadsides. I tried siphoning gasoline using methods from the internet, and to my surprise, it worked. I hadn't even reached the gas station before my containers were full. However, I wasn't so lucky with the ham sausages. The factory had been completely emptied, not even minced meat was left. With no choice, I dismantled the generator to take it back. Perhaps because I had the zombie king with me, we only encountered a few scattered small zombies along the way, and they didn't dare approach, which made my journey rather pleasant. The generator was too heavy, and no matter how I tried to show Aldrich, he wouldn't help carry it. I couldn't move it myself, so I had to strap it with a chain and drag it behind the car. After resolving the generator issue, I had Aldrich follow along the factory's perimeter. wall and had him lift all the barbed wire from the factory. I was planning to take it back with me, but it was then that I realized I had a big problem, including the wire mesh that needed to be hauled back to make a defensive net. My little pickup truck just couldn't handle the load, so I eyed Aldrich's waist, lean and strong, looking just right for hauling loads. Boss, the ham sausages were already finished. With a pang of pain, I took out a can of luncheon meat, pulled open the lid myself, and swung it back and forth in front of Aldrich, wafting the scent of meat under his nose, which made his eyes bulge with anticipation. Help me out, will you? My original plan was to have Aldrich act as a sort of human transport machine. Unexpectedly, Aldrich growled lowly, and the zombies wandering nearby slowly drew closer, then stopped orderly. I had no idea how he understood me, but he did, taking a closer look into Aldrich's eyes. They seemed clearer than they had been a couple of days ago. You can understand me, right? Aldrich remained quiet, his goal clear. He bit into the luncheon meat, his mouth so large that it almost included my hand, which frightened me into instantly letting go. It took me a moment to realize he knew where my hand was, so he didn't bite. What really is the biggest difference between zombies and humans? Why do some zombies regain their senses and turn back into humans later on? Filled with intense curiosity, I reached out and placed my hand over his chest. It was as quiet as a wall there, no warmth, no beating. I felt a bit disheartened. It wasn't my first time experiencing the apocalypse. What was I really hoping for? Aldrich looked at me blankly, slowly raising his hand with nails too long, and placed it on my chest. Perhaps it was the beating of my heart that intrigued him. He leaned closer, squatted down, and pressed his ear against me, listening quietly for a long time. After a moment of breathlessness, I quickly stepped back 2 paces, feeling an indescribable eeriness. He is a zombie, not a human, a zombie, dead, cold, mute. Taking a deep breath, I found some hemp rope in the factory and carefully tied the wire mesh around the zombie. Just like that, I drove the little pickup, leading hundreds of zombies, and triumphantly returned home. Though it took over 4 hours to get there, what would have taken over a week to haul was done in 1 day. I was unspeakably thrilled and rewarded Aldrich with another can of food. 09. Getting the wire mesh home was easy, but setting it up nearly drove me to tear my hair out. Each zombie was stiffer than the last. They were okay for heavy lifting, but asking them to help set up the wire mesh was like asking for the moon. So, by the time I spent over half a month setting up the wire mesh and electrifying it, Alexis, tied to a tree, had already wilted. I had completely forgotten about his existence. I hurriedly killed a rabbit and threw it over, but Alexis didn't get it. Aldrich leaped and caught it directly in his mouth. I almost forgot, he is also a hungry wolf. The luncheon meat cans, which were supposed to last 3 years, were gone in less than a month, all into his stomach. With my supplies hollowed out, Aldrich had been hungry for a whole day, but perhaps because he was well fed, Aldrich's speed and agility increased, his complexion began to turn ruddy, and his intelligence seemed higher. I never thought I'd one day worry about feeding a zombie. As soon as this project ended, I set off with Aldrich on a journey to find more ham sausages. I pulled out an old map from before the apocalypse. I found the 2 closest farms to me. One was 35 kilometers east, a chicken farm, and the other a bit further, 42 kilometers south, a pig farm. Driving for over an hour, I arrived at the deserted chicken farm. There were no chickens or eggs in sight, just chicken droppings and feathers scattered all over. With a sack in hand, I didn't even spare the chicken droppings. I shoveled them up to take back for biogas fermentation. I packed up all the chicken feed, dismantled the incubator, and on my way out, I also took down the surveillance cameras. After raiding the chicken farm, my pickup truck was full. I went home, found some old video recordings, set up the surveillance system, and then drove towards the pig farm. The temperature had dropped over the past few days, but the solar panels I installed were plentiful and more than enough to keep the surveillance system running. The road to the pig farm was in better condition, but the scene was just as desolate. With the pigsty collapsed, I was prepared to leave with just pig manure, when suddenly I heard grunting noises from a crack in the wall. Looking through the hole, there was a large pig lying under a collapsed beam, munching on moss. Next to the sow, several skinny piglets were sucking on a withered teat. It was a jackpot. I had Aldrich remove the roof, and effortlessly caught a few piglets. While trying to capture the mother pig, Aldrich looked disgusted and uninterested. You're a zombie and you find this dirty. I rolled my eyes at him and single-handedly dragged the mother pig onto the trailer. Perhaps it was all the farm work, but I felt myself getting stronger. I cleared out the pig farm's feed inventory, and on my way out, I eyed their large livestock truck. Despite its stench, it was big and could carry a lot, but unfortunately, I couldn't find the keys and had to give up. Returning home fully loaded, that evening I placed the fertile eggs in the incubator, fed the piglets and the mother pig some boiled feed, and reluctantly killed a rabbit to feed Aldrich. After feeding, I remembered Alexis in the backyard and had to pry the rabbit's head from Aldrich's mouth to feed Alexis. Aldrich was visibly annoyed, grunting fiercely at me all the way and refusing to go back to his pit at night, instead blocking my bedroom door. Aldrich, I said, poking him hard in the chest. Suddenly feeling a strange sensation under my fingertips, his chest, I paused, then slowly brought my ear close to it. I was greeted by a long silence, and just when I was about to give up, a heavy thump sounded by my ear. Aldrich's skin was still cold, his complexion still pale, but unbeknownst to me, he had developed a heartbeat. It took me a full half hour to count Aldrich's heartbeat, averaging one beat every half hour. What caused these changes? Time, or food? The next day, I planned to gather more supplies, but woke up to find the mother pig dead. I had to quickly deal with it, since there was still some cured meat left from before, and the mother pig's meat wasn't tasty. I ended up feeding it to Aldrich and Alexis. Alexis seemed to enjoy it, but Aldrich was less enthusiastic. He has a taste for ham sausages and luncheon meat, but where am I supposed to find those this year? Then it struck me, before moving back to the village, I lived in a residential area next to someone who ran an e-commerce business selling ham sausages and luncheon meat. Could she still have some in stock after dealing with the mother pig and feeding the piglets? I didn't delay and drove straight to the neighborhood I used to live in. Since the safe zone was established in T-City, most people had been relocated there, leaving only a few wandering zombies in C-City. At the onset of the apocalypse, many shops and malls were looted. The factory market was not spared either. Instead, some e-commerce warehouses were brimming with stock. Seeing a house full of spam and sausages, Aldrich's eyes lit up, and he eagerly extended his long claws to pry open a can and start eating. Inside the house, a starving zombie neighbor lay collapsed, trembling like a rug on the floor. I wasn't sure if she would be the lucky one, but I fed her a piece of pork and left her 100 cans. Her inventory filled my truck, and Aldrich kept eating non-stop in the passenger seat all the way. When we passed a bridal shop at the mall, I smashed the glass door and picked out a suit for him, which fit reasonably well. You can't tell by the clothes or the saddle, but once he put on that little suit and applied a bit of blush, you couldn't even tell he was a zombie. If we could really survive these 10 years, forget it. Who knows if the zombie king could be the lucky one to be revived. Let's just live like this. Being a pet isn't so bad. On the way back to the orchard, I saw huge tire tracks on the ground, and my heart instantly lifted. He had come, sure enough, just as we entered the orchard. We were surrounded by a group of armed men. I calmed the restless Aldrich and obediently followed the men back to my house. My house was now surrounded by many large trucks. The gate had been pried open, and the yard was filled with large iron cages on my lush pea sprouts, containing dozens of zombies. Looking up, in the sunny yard, a man in a white lab coat leaned against the window sill, leisurely drinking my soda. We looked at each other across the yard. He raised his glass from his superior position and toasted, "Cheers, go inside." The person behind me pushed me hard, causing Aldrich to growl in dissatisfaction, but fortunately, I quickly grabbed his arm before he could lash out. With my arrival, the yard erupted with the famished howls of zombies, but usually, they would quiet down like chickens at the sight of Aldrich. Why would they dare howl at me? Could it be that Aldrich had upgraded again, so much so that the zombies couldn't recognize him as the zombie king? I was puzzled, but my thoughts were quickly interrupted. "Where is your zombie king?" the man in the lab coat seemed to ask casually, but his eyes were fixed on Aldrich. "Oh, have you added a new member to the family?" He seemed not to recognize Aldrich. "What exactly do you want?" The man smiled, poured himself another soda, and pointed at Alexis, who was locked in a cage alone. "Don't be so tense. I'm just curious about the results of my experiment. Came to check it out." "What do you mean?" "Seeing how well you've trained the zombies, I specifically brought you some new material to see if You can train another zombie king. I then understood that the appearance of Alexis was not a coincidence, but what I didn't understand was how, just 2 months into the apocalypse, he had found out about me and knew of the existence of the zombie king. At that time, humans were busy trying to survive, and zombies had not yet mutated. The concept of a zombie king didn't even exist. Who are you, Smith? But everyone prefers to call me Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith. Could it be the Dr. Smith who developed the mutant zombies? Why me? Oh, that question. It's just because your security measures weren't good enough. Someone escaped to Base E in the city and reported the situation of your orchard and house. Base E, the largest survivor base in the country, known for having the fewest zombies and the strongest firepower. But in the 8th year of the apocalypse, the zombie king suddenly appeared, causing Base E to fall. Dr. Smith, who was fleeing in a vehicle filled with a large number of mutated zombies, met a gruesome fate when his vehicle overturned and he was torn to pieces by the very zombies he had nurtured. Aldrich was not a completely senseless zombie. Considering his current state of recovery, it's possible that in 8 years, Aldrich might have regained his humanity. Why would he target a survivor's base? What was the feud between Dr. Smith and Aldrich? At first, I was just curious to see if you were really preparing for the apocalypse. I sent someone to probe around and unexpectedly discovered a zombie king, a 1 in a million, truly unique zombie king. Even considering it's only been a month since the zombie outbreak began, how could he identify from Aldrich's slight differences that he was the zombie king? Earlier on the walkie-talkie, he also mentioned it. Could it be that he, too, had been reborn? Dr. Smith chuckled and pointed towards the zombie cage in the yard. Miss, we could collaborate. I'll offer you the utmost security, and in return, you could share with me the methods to tame zombies and cultivate a zombie king. What do you say? My mind raced, and suddenly, a better idea struck me. I can't trust the security you offer, but perhaps we could arrange a different type of collaboration. You supply me with arms, and I'll provide you with the methods. Dr. Smith appeared surprised but quickly agreed. In that case, I hope it's not too much trouble to have Miss around for a while. Thinking he could stay for free. It's no trouble really, just pay the rent on time, 50 cans of lunch and meat per person per day. You can pay monthly or daily. Dr. Smith smiled, snapped his fingers, and behind him, someone visibly annoyed dragged out an entire wall of lunch and meat cans. With what's in my car, that should keep Aldrich more than satisfied. Dr. Smith, I am a girl after all, and I'm not comfortable living with others. Please, don't enter the house. Thinking about the big surprise I was about to give him, I smiled, eyes crinkling, and ascended the stairs with Aldrich confidently. Taming zombies, is it? I'll train them well for you. That night, I had Aldrich devour the half a truckload of lunch and meat cans. Aldrich's skin quickly turned red, and his eyes became clearer. Life and death matter. You must listen to me tomorrow. I pinched Aldrich's cheek hard, surprised to find it somewhat soft. Is he really on the verge of becoming human again? I pressed my ear against his chest. Eyes on the clock. In half an hour. His heart beat twice as I got up. Aldrich stubbornly put his head against mine again, like he was afraid I'd take advantage of him. He insisted on reciprocating wherever I touched. I stood stiffly, and after a moment, a nearly inaudible breath fell on my chest. I admit I was a bit too reactive, but by the time I realized it, my hand had already slapped Aldrich across the face. He blinked, somewhat dazed and confused, even looking a bit hurt. Fortunately, he didn't insist on slapping me back. Otherwise, a slap from a zombie king might have cost me my head. Early the next morning, after ordering Dr. Smith's men to help feed the pigs and clean up, I finally sat down with him face to face. Shall we begin? I smiled and nodded, embellishing the story of feeding Aldrich. Dr. Smith pondered for a long while, unwilling to believe, and I had Alexis demonstrate for him. Sit down. Alexis obediently sat. Stand up. Alexis stood again. How did you manage that? Dr. Smith was still skeptical. I've tried everything from starvation to food temptation, even electric shocks, and never achieved such results. Believe it or not, I did it. Dr. Smith was silent for a long time, then had several heavy boxes brought out from behind him. One box contained 10 guns, the others held bullets and hand grenades. I wasn't sure about the authenticity of these items, so I just accepted them. After all, as long as he couldn't tame zombies successfully, he wouldn't dare touch me. One more question, where is your zombie king, Dr. Smith asked with a smile, her eyes were fixed intently on Aldrich, devoid of any hint of jest. I clasped Aldrich's hand, watched as a smile involuntarily spread across his face, and returned it with a radiant grin, feeling indescribably smug. People always need some tricks to survive, don't they, Dr. Smith scoffed coldly, unable to even maintain a forced smile. Miss, it's the apocalypse. Do you know how crucial research on the zombie king is for ending this apocalypse? Yes, you know how desperately people are struggling to survive in these apocalyptic times. Why should I play the saint when Dr. Smith himself has unleashed this hellish reality? He paused, then suddenly bent over, clutching his stomach with laughter. You're smarter than I thought. I'm not smart, I've just experienced a few more years and know a bit more. During those 10 years of apocalypse, piecing together known events, it was easy to discover that the so-called apocalypse was never a natural disaster, but a man-made one. This person deserves death. As night fell, the surroundings were eerily silent. I knelt on the bed, pressing my forehead against Aldrich's, trying my best to convey my thoughts to him. I realized something. The closer I was to him, the better he seemed to understand my words. You have to help me. After finishing, I cradled his head, reviewing the current plan in my mind. Aldrich remained very quiet. So quiet that I wasn't even sure if he understood. The area outside the door was full of spies. I dared not risk speaking more. Did you understand? Aldrich blinked, his lips curving into a smile involuntarily, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was the zombie king, capable of issuing commands to other zombies at frequencies humans couldn't hear. Given the complexity of the plan, I could only hope his comprehension was perfect. Since it's all set, let's get a good night's sleep to check the results tomorrow. I pulled up the blanket to sleep, and Aldrich shamelessly snuggled in too. Get out, I whispered. He blinked his large eyes. Not only did he not leave, but he also pressed closer until he pressed his forehead against mine so hard that my head buzzed. He was really persistent in imitating me. Listening to the noises outside, I reluctantly covered his head with the blanket, letting him sleep in the bed for the night. The next morning, I got up early and pretended to pick up firewood, scouting the area for a week. It was quiet in the orchard, and I finally relaxed. Thankfully, he understood, knowing there were people around. I picked up some firewood and went back, and found excuses to leave again by noon. Dr. Smith was very suspicious. He wouldn't trust my methods verbally and would definitely have someone follow me secretly, but if I made it too easy for him to discover the truth, he would be suspicious. So I continued to find excuses to go out for several days, always returning home quietly without incident. This went on for over a week, and Alexis's training was still ineffective, causing Dr. Smith to start doubting me. Mrs. Methods seemed to have lost their effect after the first few days. I pretended to be embarrassed and anxious, and left as usual to pick up firewood in the orchard. That evening, while they were feeding rabbits to Alexis, I quietly slipped a piece of medication in. The next day during training, Alexis was noticeably more obedient. Unexpectedly, just one day later, Mrs. Method worked again. I returned to my room with a sour expression, but secretly I was thrilled inside. Go on, search for the so-called secret. I guarantee you'll be in for quite a surprise. In fact, not long after the apocalypse began, animals and plants started mutating, but their mutations were slower compared to the zombies and initially went unnoticed until the middle to later stages when people began to study them. If Dr. Smith is indeed reborn, he's likely to recognize which plants and animals have mutated, though he may not know their effects. Seeing me feed the zombies with mutated plants, he will surely send someone to covertly gather them for study. Once his men are dispersed, they can be taken down one by one, without his armed guards. I'd like to see how he manages. As expected, that afternoon Dr. Smith's people went out in groups. Aldrich's undead minions were already lurking in the mountains, and with Aldrich, the zombie king, guiding them, the zombies would silently surround Dr. Smith's men, making them disappear without a trace. By nightfall, none of those who went out had returned, and Dr. Smith started to sense something was wrong and forcefully entered my room. But at that moment, what he saw was not me, but the surveillance monitor I had removed from the pig farm. It was surprisingly still functional after some repairs. Nicola, how dare you deceive me? Dr. Smith immediately shot the monitor to pieces. Just like that, he would surely find me soon. Aldrich and I were hiding in the woods, with Aldrich quietly taking care of Dr. Smith's men while I continuously changed locations to avoid being found. His car couldn't drive in, so he would definitely come on foot. Dr. Smith is cautious and wouldn't follow rashly. Discovering that I had installed surveillance, he would suspect I had made other preparations, so he would stay in his car. What he didn't know was that, during the days he was training Alexis, Aldrich had instructed Alexis to place a cylinder filled with sevoflurane in his car. As soon as he sat in the car, Alexis would turn the switch on command, and the gas would leak out, causing Dr. Smith to lose consciousness due to inhaling an excessive dose of the anesthetic. When I returned home, it finally quieted down. As I opened the car door to drag out the bodies of Dr. Smith and others, a gun was suddenly pointed at the back of my head. I shivered, unbelieving, and turned around only to find, to my astonishment, Dr. Smith, unexpected. I stiffened. Indeed, it was unexpected. Speak, where is your zombie king? How did you tame him, and how did he become a zombie king? Speak. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, Dr. Smith harshly struck my head with the butt of his gun. I clutched my head, dizzy, and pulled out the pistol from my waist, aiming to fire as taught, but to my shock, the gun merely clicked, empty. Did you think I'd give you a real gun? Dr. Smith sneered, aiming the gun directly at me. No matter, I'll figure it out sooner or later. As the gunshot rang out, my heart constricted, and a dark figure threw itself in front of me. Aldrich looked down bewilderedly at the bullet that had ricocheted off the ground. His first instinct was to stoop down to help me up. Dr. Smith, in disbelief, stared at his gun. You're unharmed, shot and still nothing. No, you're not human, you're a zombie. No, wait, why aren't the other zombies afraid of you? Who are you, really? Who are you? I struggled to stand up, holding onto Aldrich's hand. He is the king of the zombies. After a long silence, Dr. Smith burst out laughing. Impossible. If he were the king of the zombies, why would the others show no reaction? Because he has evolved, slowly becoming more human, evolving towards humanity. I've put so much effort into creating zombies that feel no pain and possess incredible speed and strength, and you're telling me they're evolving back into humans? What was the point of all my work then? You're lying, you're just making this up. Dr. Smith was furiously swearing and suddenly pulled out a gun, firing several shots at Aldrich's head. Even the usually calm Aldrich lost his temper, and with one slap, he sent Dr. Smith flying several meters. Dr. Smith crashed into my door, damaging it. Where am I supposed to find someone to fix the door now? All the effort to keep my house intact, and it wasn't the villain who damaged it, but you. I was so angry that I stomped on Aldrich, hurting my own foot. It can't be possible. Dr. Smith was still rolling on the ground, cursing non-stop. Outside, Aldrich's zombie minions, including those who were once Dr. Smith's subordinates, had completed their mission and gathered together. Aldrich then picked up Dr. Smith, imitating how I fed the rabbits, and threw him to his zombie minions. Before I could intervene, Dr. Smith was torn apart. I wanted to ask him if he had been reborn, but never mind. It's time for the last task. I drove the car loaded with military arms to the crossroads, set it on fire, and with a soaring explosion, the only road leading to the orchard collapsed. It seemed no one would disturb my peaceful days anymore. Let's go, Aldrich. Time to feed the pigs and rabbits. If you don't hurry and feed them, you'll run out of food. Also, get your minions to clear the land. Who has the money to feed so many idle zombies? If they don't work, they don't eat. 10 years. In the blink of an eye, I was fiddling with the radio on the table, really frustrated. Aldrich, did you take the nut I left on the table? This guy was learning to fix radios and had just dismantled the one I had repaired. Aldrich blinked his big eyes, looking innocently, so infuriating. In 10 years, he looked exactly the same, not aging at all. Richie, search. Richie sniffed around his feet and immediately started barking. He had taken it indeed. Under my threatening gaze, Aldrich reluctantly pulled out the nut. I assembled all the parts of the radio, and suddenly, static came through. Is there a signal? I tried tuning the channel, and suddenly, a male voice came through the radio. Channel N185 resumes broadcasting today, October 1, 2032. today marks the end of the 10-year zombie disaster, and humanity has finally won the ultimate victory. I stared blankly at the calendar on the wall, torn to shreds by Aldrich, and suddenly tears welled up in my eyes. We won, Aldrich, we've won, 10 years, and it's finally over.